following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Hey guys, this is HC Loc, and you're watching right now the WZWA Network.
Hi everybody, this is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
TW Anderson.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show here, the WZWA Network podcast in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. It's great to be with you all here once again. This is my 5th interview this week. I am hustling. I am doing the best I can to get as many things in the can as possible. And it's been such a great experience this past year doing this show, getting to learn about people's lives and their careers and what makes them tick. And here today, I have a very interesting guest, someone that I'm really excited to learn more about. He's a former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion in the Carnage Crew. He's also known as the Extreme Official in ECW. He is the one and only HC Loc. How you going, my friend?
Hey man, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I'm good, bro. And just great to be talking with you here today. We've had several ECW guys on the show before, and they've always said so many nice things about you. So I knew that I had to reach out, and so again, thank you for doing the show with me.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It's gonna be fun.
Man. Yeah, definitely. So the first question, usually, HC Loc, we ask everyone how you became a wrestling fan when you were a youngin'.
I remember the very first day, actually, living up here in upstate New York. It's very cold in the winter like it is right now. My maybe 9 or 10 years old, and my father's making me stack wood out back for the fire, right? Every year. And me, of course, being a young punk kid, making excuses to get away. Dad, I got to go in and use the bathroom. All right, go in. And of course, use the bathroom quick and then run to the TV and turn it on just to kill time. Wait until Dad yells for me. And then there's this guy, Adrian Adams, pre-adorable one, right? This is New York City Adrian Adams. But I thought he was a boxer because there's a ring, but he's hollering at the fans and he's really mad. I'm like, this guy is a jerk. What's going on? I thought I stumbled onto some historic thing that a guy's losing his temper here on TV. I had no idea what it was, or certainly not what a babyface and a heel was, or anything like that. And I was hooked. I'm like, so that was destination every week to try to find whatever wrestling show it is. And of course, living where I live, that ended up being WWE, WWF at the time, and that was everything for me. It became lifelong passion. Sure.
Yeah, it's so funny, man. With everyone we have on the show, it's always just the first moment you saw it, and it's just so mind blowing as a kid to see something like that on TV. And so thanks for sharing that. So I guess you're a wrestling fan watching WWF for many years. At some point, when's the point where you think to yourself, "This is what I want to do"?
I've always been a drummer too. Right. So it's always been about show business in my life and want to do those things. Always like the idea of traveling and being on the road, doing something like that. I probably, just me being me, I can't tell you for sure, but I probably from about the first or second time I saw it, wanted to see if I could do it. Because anything I've ever enjoyed, it's not enough for me to just enjoy it. I want to do it, But in those days, especially, I can't even tell. I think I came in around WrestleMania one time, maybe before that, when I knew that wrestling was a thing. And I mean, that wasn't even thought of somebody at my height. That wasn't even possible. So that went on and on till just being so obsessed with it and wanting to learn as much as I could about it. And one of the wrestling magazines, along the time I was getting ready to graduate high school, somewhere in there, I was going to move to LA. There's a place called Musicians Institute. I was going to take the drumming classes and be a big rock star. That was my job security plan right there. But at some point there was an ad in one of the after mags, for Al Snow's school. Oh, and wow. So I called out there, got up the nerve, dialed all but the last number probably 10 times, that whole bit, got the nerve to call. And they sent me some information, and that was very cool. But I chickened out. That was in Lima, Ohio. I'd never lived away from home at all. And I was just so sure that they wouldn't let me do it because of my height. And just fast forward, and that's why I say, like, it was meant to be, you know, with whatever you believe in, you know, whatever fate or whatnot you believe in. I felt like it was meant to be, because shortly thereafter, after I decided I can't go out there and they're not going to even let me do it. They're going to laugh at me, you know, and I've never been away from home. Not my local news, which is 20 minutes away from my house, overcame on the news one night in the local news, Cruncher's Gym opening up, pro wrestling training facility in Elmira, New York, 20 minutes from my house. And I said, holy cow, this is, so I drove down there and I ended up being their first student. But the real story behind that was, as I showed up there, called the guy, showed up there, and I waited outside in my truck for an hour before I dared go in. Same thing. I'm like, they're going to laugh at me, you know, and because I'm 5'8", which in all honesty, you know, if you watch Royal Rumble tonight, you know, I'm average height now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm average size, but it wasn't that way at the time, you know. So I thought Rey Mysterio wasn't even on American television yet. You know, I mean, he might have popped up and done something in ECW. I don't think he had at this point, but maybe he had. But I didn't get ECW then. You know, that's later in our story. You know, when I figured out how to watch that. So I came up with a plan of that. I'll go in and I'll talk to the guy, and when he tells me I can't do it because I'm too short, I'll ask him if I can get a gig just sweeping up around there or helping out somehow, so I can be around it, so I can be involved somehow. I wasn't worried about getting a job as far as money as that goes at that time. I just wanted to be around it. Luckily, I went in, and independent wrestling, well, wrestling being what it is, he didn't care. He just cared if you had your money, you know, and which I did. I had to pay him every week, you know, work and then pay him payments every week. But I ended up feeling very, very natural doing it. I was so I learned quickly, and to the point where almost too quickly, in that, again, independent wrestling being what it is, not what it was. Everybody's trying to make a buck or save a buck or steal a buck or anything like that. So it wasn't long before, because I would learn so much from the trainer, I would be doing well at the lessons. So the owner of the building would leave the trainer home next weekend and say, hey, you just come every other week. And he'd have me show the new guys what the guy showed me last week, and I hadn't even had a match yet. Which is such, I don't know if we can curse on this thing.
Yes.
Which is such bullshit about how the rest, you know, I mean, but that's wrestling, you know, and that's how it gets watered down, and how there end up being people that think they know everything and don't know anything. The one thing I had going for me was I was smart enough to know I don't know anything and I shouldn't be doing this, but I'll do whatever he asks me to do. And I've been lucky enough to learn from some great people along the way. That's how it started, though. Wow,
that's amazing. And look, I'm Australian, so you can swear as much as you want. It's fucking normal over here to swear, mate. So excellent. So you're showing a lot of promise. Obviously, now you've been given the opportunity to train people, even though you haven't even had a match yet.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot stress how much that's bad. I mean, it's only recently that I've even told people that, because it's kind of embarrassing, but that was 26 years ago. So it's like, I guess the statute of limitations has run out on that, but that's not how it's supposed to go. But I wasn't in charge, you know. But
so in my research, I read that your first actual singles match was against Steve Corino, and I'd love to hear about that. But also, I'd like to hear about what your first official match ever was, and who that was against, whether it was a battle royal or a tag match or something like that.
There was a bunch of them. My first step, first time in a ring in front of people, was a battle royal, and then I think I did probably 4 battle royals, and I can remember doing an 8-man tag in somewhere in Pennsylvania with some veteran guys, you know, just to get me in there. And I did 2 6-man tags a month or 2 later, and then I got a tag team match. So that was pretty cool. We're dwindling it down, and I kind of like that way. I don't see a lot of people getting broken that way. My guys, sometimes I do that. I train guys. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. We, you know, try to start them in a battle royal, but or with their working with somebody that else from the class, so they don't feel a little comfortable. But I thought that was a good way to get broken in, just kind of ease me into it. So it was my first time in a battle royal was to tell you how long this was drug out. Of course, there wasn't a ton of shows either at this time, but that I was aware of that I was allowed to even partake in due to the politics of it. Has to be our show. The guy that was, from my wrestling school. It was January 15th, 1995 was the first time I was in a battle royal, but it was all the way to August 8th, 1996 before I had my first one-on-one match. But that was training 5 to 6 days a week, doing whatever battle royals I could, doing whatever six-mans I could, doing ring crew all the time, paying your dues, something that, people could learn from today, do a little bit more of that. So it was quite a stretch there, but that was, and a lot of that's a blur, some of that stuff. I can remember little spots of it, but it was just being nervous and getting out there and saying, okay, I've got one or two things that I know how to do. And it's just shut up and listen, you know what I mean? And listen to the veterans and get me through that. And then finally, and as it worked out, I've always had a little bit of luck on my side in the business, a lot of examples of that. And luckily how it just lined up, whether anybody did this on purpose or not. Steve Carino being my first singles match. And of course he was, I don't want to say nothing, but we were both nothing then. He'd been doing a little bit longer than me, and he was skinny, dark haired, skinny as a rail, wearing a singlet guy, nothing like the guy you would see later, and we were super inexperienced, but he was quite a bit more experienced. That year or two he had on me, he had a lot of matches in that time, and he helped me a great deal in that first match. And but that happened to be in my hometown. So that's pretty cool, right? You get your first match right there in your hometown with a guy who he would end up being, pop up at integral times in my career, forever since. So it's kind of cool how that worked out, him being the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll obviously definitely reconvene with Steve at different points of this interview. And I just wanted to say, for those playing at home, January 15th, 1995 was my 8th birthday party. So
wow, that's awesome.
Not to make you feel too old, mate. So I know you've been asked this one many a times. 31st of March, 1998, you work on a taping of Monday Night Raw against Luna Vachon, which is known as the first intergender match that was ever on Monday Night Raw. How was Luna to work with, and also how was Goldust to work with, and how was the whole thing received by them and everyone backstage? Also, and how the opportunity come about as well. Sorry.
Well, that was just, and if there's a lesson here, that was just, opportunity came about just due to my persistence. And I've never been good at that. I couldn't get your phone number still now, all these years later, and not know you and feel real comfortable just calling you up and asking you for a favor to book me or blah, 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 or stuff like that. So imagine back then when I'm just a kid, 3 years in the business or something. And, I got to call Howard Finkel. I got a hold of his number. And, again, the whole get up the nerve to call. Okay, I'm just going to go in my room and I'm going to call, and then finally you do. And I called him, and he asked for a tape and or I guess not a tape in those days, maybe a tape, but certainly a picture and a resume. So I sent him that stuff. I didn't have anything. It was a handwritten resume type of stuff like that. But I'd call him every week, and he was very nice to me. And yep, anytime we're in your area, just keep checking in. I don't think they do it that way now. I think there's a whole online process you have to go through. But I can remember just getting home one day and checking my answer machine, and it was from him. And I have that tape somewhere. I saved it, of him leaving a message saying, I think we can put you to work on whatever day it was. It was a Tuesday taping for the following Raw. It was 2 days after WrestleMania 14. So it was the second Raw after Stone Cold won his belt. But he said, and he finished the conversation with a thank you for your persistence. Because, again, I'm a short dude that he's never heard of, so just trying to get my foot in the door. Somehow, some of the stuff you're making it up as you go along. You can ask some veterans, and I tried, but you're new, you don't even know who to ask. Sometimes you just gotta try some stuff, and be a sponge. So I show up there that day, nervous, drove there by myself. I didn't know obviously anybody there, until I met Tony Gurria. He let me in, told me where to put my bag down. Mark Henry had just started with the Nation of Domination. He was the one guy that came over to me and shook my hand. I thought, holy cow, that's great. And I didn't know, I'm sure you know all this stuff. It's kind of customary. You introduce yourself to all the boys, say hello to all the boys. But also I'm in that position of very self-conscious because of my size, because I don't look like these guys, and because I'm brand new. It's my first time here. Do I go up to these superstars, like stars, right? You know, and biggest names in the business, and interrupt their lunch at catering and shake their hand, or I just sit down in the corner and shut up? So I sat down in the corner and shut up. And if anybody came near me, I'd stand up. How are you, sir? Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's the best you can do. And I happened to find a table in the corner that had some other of the enhancement guys, the job guys on it. One of them was a guy named Frank Stiletto, who I'd seen on these indie shows where I started. USWF, it was called, United States Wrestling Federation, where I started. And I'd seen him there a couple of times. And I kind of sort of knew him. And so I sit with a familiar face, and Dan Severn came over and sat with us. So I at least got to be comfortable as far as that goes. But as it turned out, I wasn't scheduled to work that night at all. But they have you dress, and you get paid either way, and go ahead and watch the show. And the show had already started. And Tony Gurria came up to me, and I could see he was smiling, kind of chuckling when he came up to me. And he said, "You're going to work with Luna," because I was small. Who else is going to be the first one to work with a woman on TV, right? I said, okay. And it was very, Gold Dust will get you before the bell, blah, 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 blah. Finish you with a big clothesline, and she'll do her thing. Okay, great. I think they said a couple things to me in Gorilla before we went out, but I was so shy and so shy. I could have played that probably better, but it's always better to be humble than to be too outgoing and act like you own the place and the wrestling business. You know what I mean? So I just sat at Gorilla and I didn't say anything, and they came over and told me something they like to do. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Do the best I can. I went out there and it went very well. She was supposed to splash me. I don't know if you ever saw the tape.
Yeah, I watched it earlier tonight, actually.
She was supposed to splash me off the top, and it comes down with a headbutt in my nuts. And Jim Ross like, dangerously low, he said. And it ended up being 100 times better. But it's just, I remember that's the one thing she told me. Take the monkey flip and end up in the middle. And I did that, and I knew I wasn't quite to the middle. I was a little closer to her, and I wasn't second guessing her, but I was like, well, that's good enough. I'm not quite to the middle, but she didn't even make it to me there.
Yeah.
So, but it worked out great because of the headbutt, and we went to the back. Everybody was pleased, and I watched the show, got my money, and went home. And I never did anything on television for him again, because there's an old-time job guy from the 80s named AJ Petrucci. So if you watch old stuff, he was on every week, doing jobs, and they'd do the tours with him and stuff like too. He's kind of like an Iron Mike Sharpest, but not quite that famous type of guy. And he called, that aired the next week, and I lived with my parents still. And he called my parents' house right after Raw went off the air, just yelling at me. Why would you do? He was an old school guy. Why would you do that? You should have pretended you were sick. You should have told them no. And next they'll use you, but they're going to make you look like junk. Next time you call them, they call you. Don't call them back, or you tell them you're unavailable or something like that. So I did that a couple times because this is the one veteran that, is telling, giving me some advice, or one of the veterans, but he was adamant. He'd been there and I hadn't. So I did that. In hindsight later, that's the worst advice ever. I would never tell anybody that. I understand from an old school mentality, which I have, that I want it to look like a contest, and I want it to look real and look good and all those things. But Luna Vachon is a tough, badass woman. God rest her soul. And on top of that, I was nobody. So if she can't beat me, who can she beat? And so big deal. They'll have me back, whatever. I show up in a purple singlet using my real name. It's not like I was hurting myself. They could have done anything with me if they wanted to come. That was a mistake. I should have done it more. I didn't end up hurting anything in the long run, but that was something like that. That was poor advice. I would never give that to one of my students now, ever.
I agree. Yeah. And you were given an opportunity, and you did very well with it. And that's why they called you again. So no matter what the opportunity is, even if you're losing to a woman in an intergender thing, is certainly wasn't a common thing back then. Man, like opportunity is an opportunity.
Yeah, especially fast forward to now, no one would blink their eye at that. No, it really, and at the time it was, I think probably throughout the years, maybe somebody had made, before this generation came along. Maybe somebody joked about that a little bit. I always thought it was quite an honor. You know, I had Jim Ross, the most legendary guy in history of doing it, saying this is the first time in history something like this is going down.
Yeah.
I get to say that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's one of those little like marks on the notches on my belt type of thing that I get to say, well, now that type of thing is fairly popular in intergender match, and I was the first guy to ever do it. So that was at least on a national scale. So
that's
pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, losing 20 seconds or not, I don't care. I got
yeah,
the first
man.
one. Pretty cool.
How many people can say that they got to be on primetime TV? No one.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I was lucky that I got to do that, you know, be visible in the wrestling business a lot later, but that was the first in the business. And I was a kid and I was lucky to be there. So, yeah.
1999, you do a training camp with Dory Funk Jr. I want to know what you learned most about, you know, learning from Dory, because obviously massive legend in the business, and, you know, that would probably be just something that would fast track you to being even better than you were initially.
Absolutely. A friend of mine and I went, and we were there with Amy Dumas, who was Lita. That was he was doing camps, as you might remember, he'd do week-long camps for WWE, WWF at the time, you know, like, and that's how, like, they'd bring in Edge and those guys for a week and just work with Coach Funk, you know, bam, 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 and Tom Pritchard, and he'd tell them if they're ready or not and send them somewhere to work and blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of, for the indie guys coming up, that was kind of your, boy, if you can get one of them Dory camps, you're doing something well, because those were invitation only. Then we found out he was doing one in Florida, and it wasn't affiliated with WWE, really. I mean, it was in that, you know, he's still Dory Funk. If he makes a phone call, they're gonna pick up the phone, and he did, you know, for some of us. But it was, again, like, I mailed him a tape to, you know, make sure he wasn't wasting his time, whatever. And his wife Marty handles the business and stuff like that. You've probably heard those stories. And they invited me down, and we trained for a week there, and it was a great experience. Just we had weight session every day. I think we trained twice a day, like in the ring, as far as doing his drills and having practice matches. And then at the end of the week, you do a show, and that went really well. I think did I wrestle Lita? No, I wrestled her at a practice match during the thing. I guess I wrestled somebody else at the show, and then I was in Amy's corner, Lita's corner, and it was cool because I was more experienced than her. So I'm like hollering out, you know, grab his leg or whatever, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
she was awesome. You know, we all became really good friends there. And at the end of the show, everybody left but myself, my friend Dave DeJohn, who's worked as Danger, that we kind of broke in together. He's a big dude, 6'4", and Amy, Lita. We all waited and wanted to have a meeting with Dory personally to let us know where we're at, what we're doing. So he loved my friend Dave because he was big, and he put in a word with him. I think it called WWE for him a couple times and got him some dark matches and stuff like that. Amy, kind of the same thing. He actually, and I don't mean to say this to in a disparaging way, because she's made more money than you, me, and 10 other guys just like us put together in the wrestling business. So God bless her, and she deserves every penny. But at the time, I can remember her being upset because he said, you need a lot of work on your in-ring stuff, you know, but you have a very unique look and you understand the business and you get it. And they did some photo shoots with her, and it was on her behalf, they called WWE and got that ball rolling for her. And as I sat with Dory, he said to me, I can remember almost, you know, and it sounds like I'm putting myself over, but it's one of those things where you can remember. I've got a couple stories like this, and I'm sure you'll ask the other one that pops into my head, but where I can remember almost exactly what he said, which was, he says, I think your work is great. You're a great carpenter, which he taught me to mean is a guy that can build a match. And he says, I think you can draw money for any company in the world, and I'd like to help. ECW as I think is a good fit for you. And he called Tommy Dreamer, and, you know, and I'd already been there. I'd been hanging around ECW for like a month before I went to that camp. I'd actually, a guy named, depending on if you know a lot of your ECW trivia. There's a kid I was training to wrestle named Eric Tuttle who got a character in ECW called the Towel Boy, where he'd ride down the ropes in between and somebody kick his ass every once in a while.
Yeah.
But he had ended up just online friends with some of the guys that ran the merch table, the old RF Video crew. And so he kind of knew that, already. And he's like, yeah, well, my trainer would like to come in. And they kind of let me come in and said, yeah, you can come in and do tryouts. It's not tryouts, open workouts in the beginning. You help with the ring. You get to work out with the guys. You usually get your ass kicked and you see if you come back. Well, I came back, and it was, my first time doing that, I got in the ring and it was everybody against me. I mean, this was pre-Dory Funk Camp. It was, I mean, not the main event guys, but everybody on the outside, and they could tag and I couldn't. And you just keep going, you know what I mean? And thought I was going to die legitimately. Like, I'm like, if this is how I go out, this is how I go, and, but, not much came with that other than, yeah, pretty good. Keep coming back. If you're welcome to show up sometimes, and who knows, maybe we'll need a body here or there. And then I went to the Funk Camp, and he called Tommy Dreamer. And when I showed up the next week, Dreamer was already, okay, I got to see a match with you and this guy. I got to have a match before the doors open. I said, okay. And same thing. He says, hey, you bump good, you sell good. I mean, can't offer you a job right now, but if you want to show up, you're always welcome. And again, who knows when we need a body that can do something, And so that's really how that started. Your question was about Dory Funk, but he was, I had already started coming around ECW, but he really got me to that next level. As far as, I think you asked, I blew right over your main question, which is what I learned most there. And believe it or not, this shocks people because he's not known for promos, but we did a promo class every day. And there's some stuff that I got my promos, my work too, I'm sure, but my promos grew 100% that week because we do, a couple of them every day into a camera and we'd review them. And I remember the first one I did, or maybe somebody else did it. You kind of talking about what a piece of shit the guy you're going to wrestle is, and not those words, but that type of thing. He's like, you don't want to do that. He says, you don't want to, even if you're a heel, you want to be like, I know you're a big bad motherfucker, but tonight you ain't got a chance against me, whatever, something. Yeah. Articulate it better than that. But, you don't want to, nobody's going to buy a ticket to the guy you're telling the audience isn't worth your time. Right. Yeah. So if it's not, I'm not even worried about beating you, blah, blah, blah. I'm so freaking great. I'm not worried about you. And if I'm watching that on television and all I know about the show coming up, it's this guy who's obviously a prick, who he's supposed to be because he's a heel, but he's saying that, I ain't even sweating this guy. Well, then I'm not sure it's necessarily worth me buying a ticket to go see this guy that obviously can't win, So that was a huge lesson. I remember that ever since. And I quote that often when I'm teaching.
Absolutely. It's like, well, if you beat that guy, then it's not that impressive. But then if you lose to him, then you look even worse because you just lost to the guy you said was actually
exactly.
A piece of shit,
Yeah. 100%.
So being a part of, Dory's giving you this opportunity. You're showing up every week. You're eventually, I guess, would you consider yourself someone that was a part of the ECW ring crew?
I was, yeah. At first it was, well, I'll tell you how that went. I showed up however long it was. I will say a month maybe before I went to Dory's camp. I'm not sure it was that long, but then we were doing 3 to 4 shots a week then. So, you're on the road quite a bit. And and then I came back and then it was kind of like my stock had gone up just a little bit. I was still, don't get me wrong, I was still absolutely nothing. I was nobody, I was expendable, but it was like, yeah, if you want to come around type of thing. But they at least were a little bit more aware of me, as far as like your Tommy Dreamers and stuff like that. He knew my name now, stuff like that, so that's progress. And I become very good friends with Amy, Lita, and she was getting her break there. She was figured in. She was not like necessarily the biggest star ever to come out of ECW, but at the, as far as an ECW star, but she had been friends with everybody. And she would be like, and she would do little things like, hey, you didn't say hello to Francine last night. You're going to get heat. You better go say hi to her. I said, Amy, have you seen this girl? I wouldn't dare talk to her in real life. She's so beautiful. Let alone let her be a veteran in the goddamn locker room that I got to be scared of. But I got over that. And anyway, so what ended up happening was they said, you can show up when you want to. And I remember exactly, it was 2 months So if you imagine that 8 weeks of 3 or 4 shows a week, all over the country, and I show up, take my own car, and to the point where the ring crew had become Tony Devito, who ended up being obviously my Ring of Honor tag team partner, who I'd known from the Indies. He was on ring crew at the time too, and Mike Keener and Angel, who was Angel of the Baldies, and a couple other guys. But we were all at this point we're very close. Tom Marquez was ring crew chief. We're all very close. I just didn't physically work there, but they'd already given me responsibilities. Like, I know I do this every day. I'm the guy that grabs the ropes or whatever, So I wasn't really there, but I was kind of there. We wrestled in Wilkes-Barre, PA. I'm sorry. No, we wrestled in someplace. It was 3-day loop. I can't remember the first night, but we got a hotel in Wilkes-Barre, and my wife at the time called me and told me she was pregnant. And I said, it was with my son who just walked out, and he'll be 21 this year. So talk about time flying. But she said, I said, okay. And I said, I either got to get a job or I got to go home. This is what I want, but God, I already had 2 little girls at home. But we were managing, but now I'm going to have a pregnant wife, and this is all costing me money, not making me money. And, I do carpentry for 2 or 3 days a week when I'm home, but I got to get a job or I got to go home. There's a responsibility factor here.
Yeah.
So I'd mentioned that to Angel and DeVito and those guys, and I'm sure it was Angel who relayed that to Bill Alfonso the next day when we were in Wilkes-Barre. And Fonzie came up to me. We'd set up the ring. We'd done workouts. He said, hey, go find Angel, DeVito, Chris Chetty, Roadkill, Danny Doring, maybe somebody else, Little Guido, I think, guys like that. Go tell all those guys I want to see them. Yes, sir. So I did. I said, Fonzie'd like to see you guys. Fonzie'd like to see you. Blah, blah, blah. And I walked over to the last guy. They were sitting in a circle with one empty chair. And this is my other story, by the way, of my remember word for word. That almost one of those things you can't really believe happened. And he says, "Love, Daddy, take a seat." I said, okay. He says, "This meeting's about you." He pointed right to me. And I shit my pants. He says, no one's ever asked you to be here or told you had to be. You're not getting paid. You work your ass off in the ring whenever you get a chance. And even more so, you bust your ass before doors open and backstage to whenever's asked of you to show how bad you want it, to pay your dues. And I want you to know that over the course of the last 2 months, everybody in this circle at one time or another has come to me and asked me if I would help get you hired here. So, I'm hearing the hum in my ears, like, holy shit, something's about to happen. He says, I want to let you know that starting next week, you're on the payroll and you're with us full time. And everybody got up and shook my hand. I'm like,
wow.
Like graduation shit, like, holy shit, and I was so happy and so excited. I mean, you're not making tons of money. And of course, everybody knows the stories about the checks later on and all those things, but you're part of something now, right? And that's the big 3. And I worked there. And then, of course, we would go on from there where then I got a spot and then I got a character and then and so you keep growing. But now I'm in, so that was a great, great, great day, great memory, and it started one of the best times of my life.
That's amazing. I love that they had to set something up. They couldn't just have someone come up to you and say, hey, man, yeah, we're going to give you a job. They had to set something up. We're all sitting around and then you start to shit yourself a little bit. And then all of a sudden it's this amazing kind moment. That's really cool, man.
Yeah. So, that means so much because they didn't have to do it that way and make a big deal out of it. You know what I mean? And of course, there's a little bit of that. I'm sure there was a little bit of a rib involved there too. Like, we're gonna make this kid think he's in trouble.
Yeah.
We're doing nice for him, But great, I've done that stuff like that 100 times for people. That was great. That was a great day.
Awesome, man. So before we start talking about you finally getting some dark matches and getting on television, I wanted to ask you if you trained at the House of Hardcore.
I didn't train there as far as one of their students.
Okay.
That is, however, where we park the ring truck. So
okay.
Training informally, as far as like just us as the boys, we, the guys on the ring crew, we'd go there and we'd work out. Then there'd been a couple of occasions where some of the guys on the some of the guys in ECW would want to just go there and try stuff, work stuff out, and I was a good tackling dummy. But as far as training under Taz and Bubba and Perry, I was not in those classes. No.
Okay, I'm still trying to search for someone that was actually a part of it. Maybe I'll just have to get Chris Chetty on the show.
Well, Danny Doring, I'm sure would love to talk to you, and he's got a million stories about that.
Yeah, he's very hard to locate. I'm still searching for him, but I'm sure it's
Daniel Morrison on Facebook, buddy. I see him on there every day.
It's hard. I'm not friends with him on Facebook, so I don't think he got my message, but I'll figure it out at some point.
There you go. Maybe I'll write him for you if you want.
That'd be great, bro. So, okay, how do you first find out about this idea of you becoming the Extreme Official HC Loc?
100% on the last minute thing. They're writing TV up to the point when TV is going to go on, type of thing. And we're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Steve Carino, there's that name again, is getting ready to feud with Dusty Rhodes. And so they let me back up a little bit. We were at TV the week before in Florida somewhere, and I'd been doing dark matches now. And Dreamer is starting to be a little bit impressed with me. Obviously, they're seeing how hard I'm working on Ring Crew, and I busted my ass. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I'll tell you about that, how that was. But he's wanting to give me something. I've been working the house shows, and now we got to TV, and I cannot remember for the life of me, whenever I tell this story, who was standing next to me. But he said, "Hey, you're working with so-and-so tonight." And he started to walk away. And, of course, we're at TV, so I'm not going to work on TV unless I'm just doing a job, and he turns around and he goes, "You." And turns his head like this, like he's thinking, because he wants to give me a payday. Because you don't get paid unless you work, by the way. That's why Ring Crew is a favor for these guys, because that's a payday, and they pay for your room, but you get paid twice if you're wrestling, you get paid 3 times if you sell T-shirts too, which I did, and I'll tell that story next. But anyway, he turned to me and goes, "You want to ref? Whatever you want me to do, sure. Because have you ever done it?" I said, "Nope." He says, "But you," I said, "But I've had a lot of matches, so." I think I know where I would want a referee to be in a match. Says just do your best. Talk to Keener, Mike Keener. He's a great referee, great friend, and get some tips. I said, okay, borrow a shirt. So I did that. And I refereed, and I can't remember how many matches I did that night, but it was that, well, we don't have a match for you, but if you do this, you can at least get paid again. So I got double pay for that day. So the next week we went to shoot TV, and they're getting ready to do something with Steve Carino, and Dreamer came up to me and said, "Hey, I want you to go out for Carino's thing, but wear your ref gear." I said, "Okay." And he says, he's going to run down the town and everything. I want you to grab the mic and say that you're from this town, from Milwaukee, and run him down and blah, 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 blah. And he's going to hit you with the cowbell and you get color. Says, "Great. Yes, sir." And he says, and then after that, maybe we'll work that into, we started talking about how different ideas to get from there to me being a full-time wrestler. And I can remember speaking to Danny Doring to him that night. He's like, "Man, that's so great. Things are starting to happen for you." And I can remember some people kind of congratulate me like, this means something. This means they're getting ready to start doing something, you know what I mean? And so I went out there, I'd gone over in my head what I might want to say a couple times. I didn't know. I asked Carino, he had some good advice on that, or some ideas of what to say. And I went out there and I grabbed the mic from him, and my first line was, "Excuse me, Mr. Carino, but I just happen to be from Milwaukee." And the place lost their shit, right? And I got the goosebumps, and then I'm into it. So my promo went really, really good. And that, said what I had to say. And he takes the cowbell by the rope and swings it over his head and just hits me with the bell right here. I already got my gimmick in my hand. And I go down and do my deal, and I can already see it go pss, pss, pss with my heartbeat out on the mat. So the best thing about that is if you ever watch that on the network, subconsciously, I know that I'm on Ring Crew, which means I'm the asshole that's got to clean this hands, right? So without even thinking about it, just instinct, I'd go, pss, pss, and you could see me going, trying to, like, for a second, trying to wipe it up, and then so anyway, it was such a weird night, because from there they took me to the back, and I was busted bad, and had to take an ambulance to the hospital. They gave me a cell phone to call when I was done. Nobody picked up the cell phone. Had to take a cab back to the ring, back to the arena, still in the bloody referee shirt.
Yeah.
27 staples in my head.
Shit.
And of course my good friends, because this is the wrestling business, this is paying your dues. Now still the newest guy there. They left the ring up till I got back, so I could tear it down. And I love that shit. People not in our business think that that's, oh, those assholes. I'm like, nope, that's the way it's done. And I did what I was supposed to do, and I earned it. You know what I mean? So you have to earn your stripes. It's a whole nother tangent, but not everybody has to do that these days. Some guys do, but not everybody does. And you can tell the ones that don't. You have to deserve the things you get in our world. But at any rate, I came back and I walked by. Paul Heyman was sitting there, and he's going, Loc, you got it, my friend. I've had to tell a lot of people they don't have it, but you got it. I'm going, holy shit. And I'm like, that was first of several times when I thought, that's it. Plane rides, jet flying, I'm going to be the next level. But at any rate, that I fell for that one a couple, 3 times. But he was very complimentary. And whenever I'd have a match and I knew it went really well, he would, oh my God, you're so, great job. You've seen all the videos of him and how he is. And it makes you feel like $1 million, but so that's how that started. And now you almost got to stick with that, right? The plan was never for me to go there. I've gotten questions throughout the years of what was it like going from being a referee to a wrestler? And I was never a referee. That was a character.
Yeah.
That was my wrestling gimmick. But at any rate, that's how that started. And then you can't just, next week show up in, a cut off t-shirt and shorts and be a wrestler. You gotta, so we went on from there, and I got to do quite a few things there. Wrestled. Dusty Rhodes requested that I then referee the match with him and Carino on pay-per-view.
Of course, yeah, because it makes sense, yeah.
So which was very cool, so I got to work with Dusty later in Ring of Honor, so it was cool to have that brush up against him, especially at his request.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So I wanted to bring it to the 16th of October, 1999 at the Palladium in Worcester, Mass. You and Tom Marquez, you worked with Big Sal and Little Guido. In my research, this is the first house show match you worked. It might be wrong, though. Sometimes the website I look at.
It might have been, actually, come to think of it. Yeah, I think that was for Extreme Officiating, but I think, right? But yeah, I don't think I was there long for that. That was shit. That was pure having an opportunity and doing what every dumb kid does. They said, go a minute, and then Guido and Sal are going to run in. I remember that. And our 1 minute spot, when you're a kid, you think that 1 minute is quick. Holy shit, what can I do in 1 minute? So you go too fast, right? And you go 1 million miles an hour. It sucks. You can't do things well when you're going too fast. Plus, you're not letting it breathe for the fans to care and to get invested in it. And consequently, your little series of stuff that should have lasted a minute or 90 seconds, you got done in 30 seconds, because you're going way too fast. And then I stand there waiting like a dope. It felt like an eternity. It might have been 5 seconds, but for FBI's music to hit, for them to come get us, because I went so fast that they weren't ready yet for the cue. Really. I mean, the music guy wasn't or anything like that. But Jesus, I told you to go a minute. That was 2 seconds or whatever it was. It wasn't that bad. But it went really well. I think we just, after that, they calmed me down, and worked a little slower and did all they did. I don't even recall if we got any offense in on that. It was just a bunch of cool little table spots and some cool little innovative offense stuff they had. We were just guys there to take their shit. But that's cool. That's part of it, And again, that was one of those first building blocks, first steps to getting to do something more. So I wish at the time made more of it. Maybe I got to that next step a little sooner, but that's how it goes. I didn't. So I had to stay at that step for a little while and learn a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. And, you know, that was the 16th of October. Fast forward to the 18th of March 2000. It's your TV debut match on Hardcore TV against Chili Willy, a guy that we had on the show, and he could not remember that he even had this match, and it was his first match.
That was his first match. He didn't remember it?
Yeah. He was like, really? I don't remember doing that. I'm like, yeah, man. And then afterward, I like put the WWE Network up because the match only went 3-4 minutes. Got my phone, and recorded the match, and then I sent it to him like, here, dummy, here's your first match.
That was 100% his first time ever being seen on TV. I can't believe you didn't remember.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, and you know, but it was a great match, and I thought, you know, his debut was fantastic, but the crowd were really hot for what took place here.
Yeah, it was. I always call that my good luck building. That was in Salem, New Hampshire, and every time we went there, I got to do something awesome. I mean, I don't know why, but and that was one of those. Dusty was there, and that night I don't remember what he did, but he was there, and Paul was there, and when we got to the back, nobody was saying anything, and I said, Paul, thanks for letting me do that. Look, that was fucking tremendous. And then they went, they gave us that's how a babyface fires up. That's a babyface right there. And then the music guy who I'd become friends with came over because he had headsets on. He said, you should have heard these guys on the headsets talking about how blown away they were by what you did. They weren't expecting that to be that well, for you to be that kind. They're already talking about ideas they want to do with you, you know, and they were just bantering during that little quick 2 or 3 minute match or whatever of, well, we could do this, we could do that, you know, because they weren't expecting me to do as well as I did, however well that was, you know, but I watch it now, it's awesome, but of course there's 100 things I do different, but you know, that was a long time ago, but it was that was an awesome little experience. Like that was actually Jeff Jones, if you remember that name. He's backstage at AEW now.
Right.
He actually I believe they called him as a heel. They called him the Extreme Official before I got there. Right. And then he was ring announcing that night, and he said, "Hey, when you win, I'm going to refer to you as the Extreme Official." That's awesome. So that's how he started, and I believe it was him. I knew that they were writing the TV, and they said, "Well, we want to do this thing with Loc to play off the shit with Carino and blah blah blah," and then Loc will beat somebody for you know that Carino brings out, and that happens to be Chili Willy. And everybody's like, well, how do we do that? He's a rep. How do we get to that? And I know, as I recall, it was Jeff Jones who said, why doesn't Loc count the 3 himself? So, which was a great idea. And then we did that around the house shows. It's just some heel would come out and challenge me, fight. Wherever we do, I'd hit a finish count 3 myself. And that worked every time. And we got to do, so we do little cool things with it where if the heel was choking me in the corner, I'd count while I was getting choked, you know, like, you know, you got a 5 count to break it, right? And they'd be like, what shit am I doing? You know, and then they'd make them break. I'd kick them in the nuts or something. But one of my students right now, as he progresses with his wrestling school, I have him I have him refereeing on shows we do. And I've kind of passed that down to him.
Oh, cool.
So a couple of times he's had those exact matches that I had, and I get this guy open, do it just like this and do this little spot. It's a fun little thing, and it works literally every time. So you get a reaction from people. So it was cool. Fun.
Yeah, man. And a week later, this is huge. In Kansas City, you beat Steve Carino. So tell me a bit about that.
That was awesome. It was I thought that went well, and Dusty came out at the end, and it was a great little moment for me. And that was one of those things where when they told me that's what I was doing, I was like, holy shit. And Tony Devito sitting next to me, just slapped me on my leg. He said, "You're on your way now, buddy." And then afterwards, everybody was complimentary, and it went well. And I thought, you know, we're really going to do something with this now. And we kind of did, but it never really, I mean, I think the company that was so frazzled at that point, where probably the last thing they're worried about was what they're going to do with me, you know. But we would do stuff like that still all the time, right? And that was a great thing. But as you might have in your notes, though, sometime after that, they introduced a heel referee, which is Danny Daniels, and we would always bounce off of each other doing something. We had a dark match before a pay-per-view. That's on the network somewhere. that made one of the TV shows. And anytime I would get bumped, he'd come in and I'd bump him. We would do that a lot. And the future of that was, had the company not closed, I was going to switch heel, join him, and we were going to wear black and white striped wrestling gear and call ourselves the Law. That was Tommy Dreamer's idea. That's what I was told. That was my idea. We were going to be the Law, but we never got that. So, yeah.
Damn, that's a shame. That's a good idea. Yeah. So I wanted to take a quick step to the side here. We're talking about all your stuff on television and in ring, but I always ask everyone about the party scene, what it's like after the shows. I know you're tearing down rings and all that, so maybe you don't get to be a part of it, but do you ever get to experience partying after the shows of the boys at the Travel Lodge or anything like that?
Oh, sure. I mean, certainly not as much as everybody else because, Ring Crew being what it was, but there's quite a few times like that, but mainly it was all business hustle, and a lot of times we'd have to head on to the next town depending on where it was, but there were certainly times, especially whenever we were in New Orleans, because everybody wants to hang out on Bourbon Street.
Mm-hmm.
This is Angel from the Baldies. You got to have him on sometime.
We have had him, yeah.
Have you? Well,
yeah.
Do a part 2 and ask him about me and him on Bourbon Street one night, where after an ECW show, and we go out, we go into this place, and everything down there is daiquiris. I didn't know that, but there's a drive you can go through. The Smoothie King is the name of one of the arenas, right? But there's drive-through alcoholic daiquiri places there, and whenever you go in New Orleans, they all serve their special daiquiris. So we go into one place, and me just being me, I'm like, Angel, what kind you want here? And he says, oh, baby, this kind. And he looks and goes, shit, I forgot my wallet. I go, it's on me, buddy. Don't you worry about that. It's fine, And I told the lady what we'd like. She goes, you want small, medium, large, or extra large? And Angel starts talking, goes, extra large, ma'am, please. Don't worry, I'm buying my friend a drink here. We'll do that. She goes, okay, that'll be $18.50 a piece. We're making $75 a night to wrestle. And Angel's over here going, thanks, Loc. And he's drinking on his goddamn thing. It's $18.50 drink I bought him. Then we went to the store next door, and he sees something cool, and he goes, I got to have that. Throws it up on the counter, whips a wad of cash out of his pocket.
Oh.
I go, what the fuck are you doing? He goes, I said I forgot my wallet. I didn't say I forgot my cash. We go into this place later, and that same night and I'd been sick. I almost didn't go out. They came back. In fact, I told them no, and they came back to get me, kind of drugged me out. I was sick as a dog, and had a couple of me and Angel and the Dups, if you remember them. We're having a couple of drinks in this place. There's you go into a bar, then there's a courtyard, so you're outside, and there's tables out there and a bar out there, and then there's the bathroom. So you got to walk through the courtyard to use the bathroom. This is a terrible story, very self-deprecating, but I'm gonna, makes me look like a jerk, but it's entertainment. Here we go. So Angel says, I gotta piss. I go, so do I. We go in there, and my stomach's rumbling because I've been sick, and I'm peeing. And I go, Angel, I gotta jump in this stall. He goes, all right, I'll see you out there. So I do, and it's just like a horror show. My stomach is exploding on me. And I hear this bang, 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 pow, pow, pow. What's going on? Type of shit like that. And people like screaming. Come to find out, there was out of nowhere, there was a hailstorm out there, and it was hitting, and there was a tin roof on this thing. Right, yeah. I hear women's voices close, right? And I peek out through the crack, and there's 3 girls in the men's bathroom because they dove in there to get out from this hailstorm. They're going, oh my God, this stinks so bad in here. It's so terrible. Because I'm sick in here ruining the thing. I go, I can't stand it anymore. I got to go out. So they dive back out of the storm rather than be in there with me. And I'm just like hiding in there thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do here? No toilet paper in the stall either. Had a Hulk Hogan off my underwear, that whole deal.
Oh no, that sucks, man.
So I'm sure there's a lot better stories than that. But whenever anybody asks me about, hey, whatever happened going out after shows in ECW, that's one that goes in my mind. That was called that the massacre on Bourbon Street, what I did to those poor girls in that bathroom. And,
that's fantastic. That's good. But that story itself is going to make we're going to make that one a mini clip on the YouTube channel. That's
good, because not enough people know about me almost shit my pants on tour with ECW. That's great.
Tremendous. I want to bring it to story that I always ask from everyone from their point of view, because eventually we want to get like 20 ECW guys tell their story of Heatwave 2000. What do you remember of what happened at Heatwave 2000 and the big fight that took place with the XPW ring crew and the locker room?
Mine will be the shortest clip of yours on there because that was in January of 2000. January 9th, was it? No, I don't remember what it was. But it was, at any rate, it was like 4 days after my son was born. I just told you. So I was home. So that's the only.
It says it was the 16th of July 2000.
16th of July 2000. My son was born the 13th of July 2000.
Ah, okay. So you weren't there.
Yeah, so I wasn't there. But what I did was able to see Angel once again do a move that I made up that I was so proud of, do it on pay-per-view that night because he knew I wasn't home. And his goal was to get me to throw my son up in the air and yell at the TV, which just about happened. And then talk about the regret of missing that, because there's guys like that, like Chili Willie, who is super talented. I might say Tony Mamaluke, and I know there was others who Tony Mamaluke would have been a star, and that would have been a great tag team anyway. And I think he was probably already working with Guido. I know he was. But after that, their stock rose so much just personally in Paul's eyes, and that they were kind of like more figured in as the boys, because there was a lot of guys out there, but those two guys, I heard Paul say from his own mouth, that they just rabid mode and they were going to protect our guys. They'd gone after Francine, which was like, makes my head itch now thinking about it. I mean, we're like a family and she's a woman and blah, blah, blah. And she would have been the sister, the big sister to me, not that she's older, but she's a veteran, and so we'd have fought to the death for each other, but we'd have murdered for her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those guys specifically, I can remember hearing the stories from everybody and from them, like Tony and Chili, for instance, just whooping dudes in the back. And their stock kind of went up after that because they were like, super figured in, because the boss says, all right, you're not just talented, you're one of the boys, and you know what I mean? And I like to think if I was there, I'd have been out there being one of those guys swinging at those people. I mean, for guys like us back then, we, time heals everything and you giggle about it. But for a guy like me and some of those guys I just mentioned, if you bring up that day or somebody that happened to be there on the other side that day, now, whatever that was, 22 years ago, you're still a little pissed. You know what I mean? You're still like, fuck those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want to fight them now, but they got what they got and they got their asses kicked. And I only wish I was there to help, but I wasn't. That's a big regret. Although, big regret. I was home with my son, who was, he and his sisters are the most important thing in my life. But wrestling wise, I certainly wish I was there.
Absolutely. But by the sounds of it, your help didn't seem to be needed. And whoever else wasn't there, their help probably wasn't needed either, because they
certainly didn't need me. For all I know, I'd have been sitting there getting my ass kicked, and they'd had to save me too. And then
I was looking through your match history in ECW, especially some of the house shows matches that you had. You worked with Simon Diamond on April 16th, but I found it really interesting. You working with Bill Irwin on May 5th in Minneapolis and Jean-Pierre Lafitte, aka Carl Ulay in Pittsburgh. Man, like those are two really interesting names for you to be working on the house shows with.
I got all these. I guess I kind of thought Bill Irwin was a TV, but maybe not. They believed in me to some degree, right? I was doing something right. Bill Irwin, while Bill Irwin comes in, legendary guy, and I think he was in for 2 shots. I know he worked the house show the day before, because he wasn't coming in to have a job. He was just getting some work, Worked the house show the day before and went over, I think, Johnny Swinger on the house show. And I was under the assumption I worked with him at a TV, but I've never been able to find the footage. So you're probably right. It probably was a house show. And I went over, I'm like this wild Bill Irwin, and it's so it's like apparently I'm doing something right here, somebody's believing in what I'm doing. But that was a lot of fun. That was one of those guys like, it didn't call anything, nothing. You know what I mean? You just go out there and you listen, and if you're a babyface, you fight until the heel stops you. You know what I mean? Don't let yourself die, but just listen and do what you're supposed to do. And that was a lot of fun. I wish I had footage or pictures or something from that deal, because I know Jack Victory was out there, which would have been, I'm sure Steve Carino was out there too, because he was doing this thing where he'd bring in guys to take me down, and what could be better, the king of old school, than a guy like Wild Bill Irwin coming in. So he was one of the guys that came in to take me out. And
right.
So, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've got access to a lot of old ECW stuff, especially fan cam footage. So if I can find that, I'll let you know. And I'm sure that the RF guys used to always do the fan cam at all the house shows, so it's got to be out there somewhere. But I'd love to see that. Sure. And of course, Carl Ulay, which is that's an interesting matchup, considering 20 years later he was Ring of Honor heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Any memories of working with him?
Honestly, he did that. And I'm like, boy, I could maybe go back there and still do that. Once I saw that, because he's even older than me.
Yeah.
But that was very cool. I think it was, as I recall, it was pretty simple match. He was a nice enough guy. I remember there being a little something where he didn't remember or wasn't really sure what they wanted him to do. So he asked me to go ask Tommy Dreamer. So I did. And Dreamer had said something like, well, he shouldn't be asking you to ask me. He could ask me. And I'm like, I'm not saying anybody, but I remember thinking at the time, did I do something wrong here? Because everything was, I don't want to say you walk on eggshells, but you walk on eggshells. You know what I mean? Not because anybody was mean to me. I felt loved there. I felt like part of it, but I knew I was a young guy. And what we've gotten away from in wrestling, and I'm going to try not to do one of my long half-hour tangents, but that whole paying your dues, knowing your spot, knowing where you are, respecting the veterans, and understanding that you're very, very lucky to be there because a million other people want to be. So it was very much like, God, I don't want to screw up, and I don't want to, say something wrong or act something wrong or not be where I'm supposed to be or do what I'm supposed to do. But it's funny that I tell that's probably not a very entertaining story, but anytime, I haven't thought about it many times, I've forgotten about it. But whenever I do remember working with Carl that day, that's what sticks out in my brain. That little thing of, well, he and Dreamer kind of had to have a talk. Not with any heat, but there was, he shouldn't be asking me. You shouldn't be asking me that. He should. I'm like, did I screw up here? Is there a lesson for me in here? But I mean, there wasn't. But I guess that's where my head always goes with that. Of course. There's a lot to our business that goes on, like how you conduct yourself backstage. And we've gotten away from that. We have, to a lot of guys you haven't, and to the people that are successful, you don't. But you go around to these indies and, my old school mentality, you can see guys kind of in the back not acting the way they should, or playing grab ass in the locker room and not just being humble and blah blah blah. Especially new guys that are just kids. I mean, I'm the friendly uncle in a wrestling locker room. I'm the guy that you can ask about to watch your match or ask advice from, or and make sure that I try to make sure like the ring crew has enough money to get something to eat afterwards or anything like that, because people did that for me and I want to be that guy. Having said that, it was just not to get on a tangent, but a month or so ago, I'm in a locker room. There's these young guys that can tell if they're 20, I'd be surprised. They're wrestling students. And I'm sitting in the locker room getting dressed, and they're the first ones in there. And they take chairs, get in the middle, telling, oh, your mama, blah, 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 joking, laughing around, being loud, all these things. And I couldn't take it anymore. I went over and I went up one side of them, down the other, and I said, and explained to them how if that was me, when I broke in, especially in the ECW, I'd have got if I was lucky, I'd have got my ass kicked. If I was unlucky, I'd have got my ass kicked and fired. You know what I mean? That's not, you're lucky, you're young, you're lucky to be here. That's not how you handle yourself in a wrestling locker room, especially when you're new. And by new, I don't mean, oh shit, I've been doing this for almost 2 years. No, I mean, once you have a career, you know what I mean? Once you've been out there on the road and doing it for 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and everywhere you go, you start over because you're still the new guy. And it says, you go over there, sit in the corner, and just speak when spoken to. And I still do that when I go to a new place. And so these guys are going to. So when I say walk on eggshells, I was very, very careful to handle myself as you should in our business. I always have been, especially in ECW, especially, you know, and just make sure that you know that you're there to pay your dues and do your thing. When you talk about paying your dues, and I'll put this story and their story up against anybody of this generation could ever have. As far as in ECW, I've ridden from Atlanta to Florida in the back of the ring truck, 20-foot movie van with no windows or anything on top of the ring, because that was the only spot for me to put the pad. So I'm up there, pitch black, dark. You can't see. Nothing like that. I had to ride there for that because I was the new guy. And then when something has to be done, so I would several times in ECW, several nights, I set up the ring, did the mandatory workouts with Tracy Smothers, God bless him. Sold the T-shirts to the fans walking in. Myself and a lady named Bella and a lady named Jill Polacco, who's Justin Credible's wife. We sold the T-shirts. Then I would wrestle, referee, and ring announce from backstage with the cordless mic, then tear down the ring, load the ring, and drive to the next town. That's paying your dues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not paying your dues. Isn't, boy, I drove 4 hours to this show today and blah 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 blah. No, you know that's part of it. That's one little minute thing. You know, you have to earn your stripes in this, and it has to be a little bit of a struggle. Otherwise, everybody do it, right? And So I don't know how I got on that. But,
that's all right. No, but and I know what you're saying. It's like if you didn't go through all that, your successes wouldn't feel as good.
Not at all. And I mean, and it's part of. It's kind of like, and it's gearing you up for several things, to be one of the boys, to know that, all right, I'm a part of this, and that other people who have been through what I've been through, in theory, there's a lot of assholes on there. The 20-year veteran assholes, 1 year in, legends. But for the most part, it's supposed to be where here's a bunch of, we call each other brother for a reason, you know, that's old, you know, I mean, that's as old as the hills. But I've been through a bunch of guys. I'm here in this locker room with a bunch of guys who have paid their dues, who have done what I've done, sacrificed to get here. So I got their back because I know they got mine. We're all in this together. You know what I mean? I always hate to trivialize this comparison, because I don't know that professional wrestling, even though I've given my life to it, is necessarily a noble profession. I mean, it's not brain surgery, but it's very important to us. And it's certainly nowhere near as noble as a career in the military. But you start, both my daughters were in the military. One still is. And you start with boot camp, and you're a grunt, and you're a piece of shit, and you better. You know, my brother always tells about going to boot camp, and your Foot Locker wasn't just so dump it out and do it the fuck again. You think they do that because they hate you? They think you want to do that so that you can be disciplined and learn how this shit goes, and then you're a valuable member of the team. That then when we go to war together. Again, not trying to equate the two, but I know you're somebody that is right there with me because you've earned your stripes. You know what I mean? You have to go through those steps. Plus, that's how you learn. You know, it doesn't matter how gifted you are as a kid. I have students of mine that haven't had 15 matches that can do cooler moves than I've ever been able to do. That doesn't mean they know how to wrestle. You have to go through all the steps and earn it, or else you're just never going to be great at this.
Absolutely. So I want to fast forward to December 12th. It's your final ECW match from my research that I've seen. You have a win over Danny Daniels at the Hammerstein Ballroom on Hardcore TV. Not long after this, maybe a month, ECW is done. So how did you find out ECW was over and done with?
When Paul Heyman showed up on Raw. And then I wasn't 100% sure then. You're always kind of hoping that it's not. You know, we did the thing in, what was it, Poplar Bluff or something?
Pine Bluff, yeah.
Pine Bluff, yeah. They had that kind of, but even then, when guys were kind of in tears, Dreamer saying, well, we still got a pay-per-view in a couple weeks, guys, you know.
Yeah.
I was gonna, but no, when I saw Paul, I mean, again, no sour grapes, but I wasn't, as much as I can say, I totally felt like I was a member of that team and felt loved there, and I loved them, and I love to see them and talk to them now. I was still an opening match guy or a ring crew guy, and not that that's a bad thing whatsoever, but when the company goes bankrupt and it's sold, they're not necessarily gonna, call me. I would have appreciated it, but no one actually called me and said, but I'm not alone in that. It's not because I was a ring crew guy or anything like that. There's a whole lot of us that didn't know it was done until it was just like, oh, there's no more shows. No, wait, there's nothing on the website. Oh, Paul's on Raw. Oh, okay. I guess I got to try to find a job. So like, yeah. But
so I mean, if you find out on your own that this thing is over, you're starting to finally get on, television. It's going to start to move into you being in this tag team eventually. That's all now done with. So how did it feel having this big family that you're a part of, and now you weren't going to see them all so much anymore? And what was the first thing that you thought of to do after ECW, and when you realized you had to start over again and get bookings elsewhere?
Well, a lot of it was, then just kind of try to hustle and see if I can parlay that into a decent indie career, that paid okay. Fast forward, well, I'm sure Ring of Honor's on your list. Along that time, guys were making a decent living. They could. There's a handful of guys that could make a living off from wrestling. And I've always loved my day job of being a contractor carpenter. So I always had that when I'm not on the road, I can do that. And I still do, I have a little construction company, but I was planning to, of course, do that for, to feed the family, but see what I can parlay as far as an indie career. There was no place else to go. There's nothing, because WCW just closed at that time as well. WWE was going to get everybody they wanted, at that point. Not long after that, at some point they did the invasion angle with the ECW guys, and of course then your ears perked up. I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean that we're all going back to work? How naive is that? Of course it's not. And if we were, it's not going to be, all of us, the opening match guys anyway. But so it was just indies until Ring of Honor came along. There wasn't any, I did a couple things with CZW in there. And they were kind of starting to get enough of a buzz there at one point to where it kind of seemed like more than just an indie, more like maybe this is a place, an actual territory, a place to work. It seemed like for a while. But it was kind of just treading water and trying to get some good indie paydays and keep in shape, ring shape until Ring of Honor came along.
All right. And I promise you we're very close to being at the Ring of Honor range of questions. I wanted to ask you, sidebar, what did you, if you watched it all, but what did you think of how the WWE handled the invasion angle?
I think probably exactly what everybody else did. It was like, you could have, and as in hindsight, as I look back now, I get it. I understand it. I've heard people that were there explain it, and of course, just being older, it makes sense. But it was like you killed it all off so fast, and then the idea of, well, Stephanie owns ECW, which is so not ECW.
So lame, man.
You know what I mean?
So lame.
And I mean, I don't know her at all, but I love her. She is the most beautiful, talented, articulate, intelligent woman on the planet. If I wasn't scared of her husband, I'd buy her a wedding ring. But you don't think Stephanie McMahon, ECW? You know what I mean?
No.
She's a genius. I think the world of her, admire her. But you don't think she should be the owner of ECW? So that was like Jesus, kind of right from there. But we'd only, as far as that ECW brand in WWE, it was nowhere near its low point yet. So as far as some of the stuff they tried to do later, when they tried to put on just half-ass, throw it on television, and of course I wasn't involved with that. There was one or two conversations where somebody said, yeah, maybe, but yeah, maybe I'm not even really thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just easier than saying no. They'll say, yeah, maybe we'll try to work that in, but that was no skin off my nose at the time. I don't know where I was at then. I guess it was still Ring of Honor, maybe not. But man,
I think you were, yeah.
Yeah. So I was so happy at Ring of Honor, I didn't even. I mean, again, not to keep jumping forward. That was such my niche right there, where to the point where the biggest compliment you could ever give me was the guys that ran the company jokingly called me. They'd say, "Okay, Dreamer," to me, because I was the first guy they I don't know if you have this in your notes. Again, I'm jumping ahead, but I was the first guy that they hired to be an agent, locker room agent. So all of those, and I'm not taking any credit for it, but all those guys at the time that were going to become stars and would go on to be world champions and WrestleMania and all that stuff, I was the agent for their shit. Not that I was calling their matches by any means, but but I was the guy relaying, let's do this, and here's how we ought to get there. And I wish I'd made more of that at the time. I was still pretty focused on my own wrestling career, and it wasn't multitasking well enough to dive into that to help everybody else. What an honor it was that they were asking me to do that. But that was my niche, you know what I mean? Tommy Dreamer was my hero, 100% my biggest mentor. And if I pleased him in ECW, all was right with the world. And the thought for anybody, even half-ass jokingly, to refer to me as that guy in a company like Ring of Honor, that was, I'm here for good. I can remember Tom Richards specifically asking me on an independent show if this is a young, dumb kid thing. I was 30, but compared to now, I was still a dumb kid. And I remember him asking me, I had a really good match me and some other guys against two guys in Sergeant Slaughter. I happened to call the finish that night, and it worked really well. And Doc really liked that. And he said, "Did you ever have any interest in WWE?" And I go, "Oh, thanks, sir. No, I'm happy where I'm at." And which may or may not have seemed dumb, but Ring of Honor was everything to me. That was I felt like I'd made it again, or even more so, than ECW.
Cool, man. By the way, your audio's gone a little bit weird. I can still understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to let you know that it's sounding a little tinny. I don't know why.
I have no idea how to fix that. So,
that's okay. It's fine. You can still understand what you're saying. I just don't know what happened there. Whilst you're in the middle of talking, it kind of changed up a bit. But anyway, I totally agree with what you have to say about the invasion angle. That's for sure. What do you miss most about ECW?
Gosh, just the guys, 100%. It's total family vibe. Such a family vibe. I think it was one of the last places that really felt like a wrestling territory, and there was that structure of, the new guys are going to pay your dues, but then you're going to earn it, and then you're going to be one of us. And you're one of us anyway. That's the other thing. I don't want to make it sound like nobody gave a fuck about the guy on their first day. They loved the guy on his first day. You just had to pay your dues. That's all there was to it. We'd still look out for him as much as anybody else. But just very much a family vibe. And that's probably what everybody says. I've never seen, and just a couple weeks ago was my 26-year anniversary doing this. And I've never seen anything like that. It was just so much like a team vibe, It was like we'd have team jackets made and stuff like that, with your name embroidered on them. It was, and that was a big deal. And before I went to ECW, when we would see once in a while an ECW guy on an indie, and they'd come in wearing an ECW team jacket that we couldn't get, a fan couldn't buy that. That was for the boys, And I mean, it was like, wow, man, those guys are kind of all in this together, And that's what I miss a lot. It was just everybody fighting for the same thing. I've said a lot of times, however long it was ago when we closed, 2000, right? So 21 years ago or somewhere in there. Maybe it was 2001. I don't think so. Maybe it was. But 21 years ago when we closed down, I often joke half of us would still be there not getting paid. All right, you could have not paid us yet, but I'm only half joking with that because everybody knew what the deal was. I don't think that anybody thought that. I don't even know what the stories are, but there's stuff like, oh, the FedEx truck caught on fire with your checks in it. Just dumb shit like that. I don't know if that's really one, but it might be. Something like that was one of the excuses. And I don't think anybody bought it, But there was such a good core of us that this is our life. This is what we were doing with our life. It was not just being a wrestler. It was being an ECW guy, or girl. We had a lot of great women there too. And so it was, as much as I talk about Ring of Honor being my big thing and getting a real good break there, ECW was just that family. You know, I've never seen anything like it before or since.
Right, man. Yeah. I get you. So fast forwarding to February 23rd, 2002, I believe, you referee the very first Ring of Honor show, Era of Honor Begins.
Yeah.
How did you first find out about Ring of Honor and the idea of Ring of Honor, and how did you end up coming aboard being a referee once more?
Well, that was started by the guys that had run RF Video.
Yeah.
And and of course I knew all that from seeing them every day at ECW. And their whole business model was, with ECW gone, they don't have the tapes to sell anymore like they did. So, so they just wanted to create. I thought it was genius. I still think it is. They wanted to. This is before streaming, so they just wanted to create content to sell. So they could technically put on a show and have talent in to where they don't necessarily make money on the house, on the gate, but they know they're going to sell.
They'll make money in the
thousands of copies of that, and that was their profit. And they did great with that. I saw they had announced it. At the time, I had started a tag team called the Hate Machine, which is a name I stole from a band I used to play with in Rochester, Rochester, New York. But I sent it to, we'd been doing a few things, and I had a partner who I was friends with who was actually for a very short time on Ring Crew with me in ECW. And he was a student of Tony Devito. I love the guy. He's pretty green, but he's a big guy, bigger than me. And we were doing some cool things. And I sent a tape to the RF guys, and they really liked that tape. Like, that's great. We'll bring you in, and and then their idea was just me come the first time, and I set up a little feud with Homicide, which is the whole reason why I refereed the opening match on Ring of Honor.
Right.
And I so badly wanted to get away from being a referee, and they knew that. They had no desire to use me as a referee. Just they considered this, even though we weren't touring or anything like that, they knew it'd be seen everywhere. And the last time I was seen nationally was doing the Extreme Official Carriage, right?
Yeah.
So they thought that'd be a good way, rather than me just come out in tights to do that. So I'm cool. So technically, and that's like one of my little things I get to brag about, the first in-ring talent to ever walk through a Ring of Honor curtain was me, because I came out to referee the first match ever in history. So I refereed that, and that was a quick little squash match. And that was just so that when you saw me later, it didn't automatically look like an angle. There's the ECW guy refereeing this match. Right. So that started to so did something with Homicide, and Boogaloo was his partner at the time. And however it happened, I got into it with Homicide after. He ended up giving me the Abbey fork and getting a little color and dropped me with his finish. And that led into show number 2. I'd come back with this partner of mine. And here's a little stuff that not a lot of people know. We came back. It went horribly. That Philadelphia crowd shit on us, specifically my partner at the time, because they loved Homicide. They could give a fuck about me because I was an ECW guy. We're in Philly, but I was a referee, and Homicide was their hero at the time, you know?
Right, yeah.
And they didn't give my partner any kind of a chance. And in all honesty, he I've never seen tape of this night, but from all accounts, he did very poorly. So we came to the back and went home, and I don't remember what the vibe was like that. But Mike Johnson was a great friend of mine for PW Insider.
Yeah.
Wrote an article reviewing the first show, and he reviewed that angle. And one thing he mentioned in there, Sledge was the guy's name. And I hate to bury him. Right. I can't tell the story without telling the story, you know. So and he said he looked beyond green and totally out of place talking about my partner. And so in the same night, I get a phone call from Sledge saying, I'm going to hold you back with what I'm doing. I can't play at that level. And I don't think he's ever wrestled since. It really kind of shocked him out of the business. And I got a phone call shortly thereafter from the Ring of Honor guys saying, yeah, I don't want him to come back with you. You know, he said, but don't worry, we'll still do the angle. that was just cut off the tape. So unless you were in Philadelphia that night, you never saw or knew that I had another partner. So said, so let's keep it going, and we'll just pretend that you have a different because at the end of the first Ring of Honor show, I cut a promo on my cell phone calling a mysterious tag team partner to come in, and we're going to take on Homicide and Boogaloo. Of course, plan A was that to be this guy Sledge. But as it played out on show 3 of in Ring of Honor, we revealed that to be Tony Devito I was calling. So that was my idea. I brought a couple of my students with me to the first Ring of Honor show, and he says, pick one of your guys. The guys from Ring of Honor said, pick one of your 2 guys, and that can be your partner. And, I think they were thinking about using this kind of as a job team, which whatever. I wanted more than that for myself. I don't care about winning and losing. I just want an opportunity to be a star like everybody else, I said, well, that's okay, but I could do that. But what about Tony DeVito? I love Tony DeVito. Do you think he'd do it? I said, I'm sure he would. He's not doing anything else. I called him, and we did that, and that's how that started. So
right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that nice little story there that you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I did read in my research that you did team with someone called Sledge, so now I know why that guy went away. So you do form the tag team with Tony DeVito. By the way, your audio has fixed itself somehow, so you're back on.
Well, good.
On normal terms here. You form this tag team. You're known as the Carnage Crew. You're feuding with Homicide. But one question before I continue talking about what you're doing with Tony is, as time was going by in 2002, how did you feel Ring of Honor was progressing in those early days?
After the first show, I think after the first show, but if not, certainly very early on, I thought, holy shit, the industry's already found something to fill the void of ECW.
Yeah.
Because this was different. Everybody on that show I'd seen or worked with or something on an independent, and they were becoming little independent stars on a small scale in their areas. And that was awesome. But they kind of came together, and it was the right city, the right time, and booked the right way. And at a time in the industry where there was a void, and it was just, holy shit, this doesn't immediately, it was literally after show 1. If this explains it, it didn't seem like just, oh, there's a booking. This felt like, well, there's a job there. This is going to be, I rattled off. It was, for me personally, I knew I was going to get maybe 2 shots to begin with, and then, get booked when I could get booked there. I ended up being like, whatever, the first 35 or 45 or whatever Ring of Honor shows. For a time, I was the only person that was on every one because I was always doing something. Again, I would help backstage, whatever, or something like that. But right away, I think probably the first night, I was very excited about it and thought, holy shit, funny Steve Carino story about that first night. If you go backwards to ECW, and I'm reffing the match, and of course I'm kind of half-ass feuding with Steve. I'm reffing his match against Tajiri on a house show somewhere. And Tajiri puts him out on a table, then does this big overhand chop like he's playing whack-a-mole or something, and chops Steve in the stomach while he's laying on the table. And he just goes, oh! And me, we're having fun on the house shows, and I lean over to Steve and I go, sell that, bitch. And they go on about their match and try not to laugh. You fast forward however many years later, that first Ring of Honor show, I took the fork from Homicide and then took his finish, and they stretchered me out of there. We go through the gorilla. I got blood coming out my face. I'm on the stretcher. Steve's there. He stops everybody, gets them all away, leans over to me and goes, sell that, bitch. And so we got the match. It was great.
Gets you back after all that time. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was an interesting one that I saw. I still haven't seen the show itself, but I remember reading the results of it years ago. December 7th, 2002, Night of the Butcher. You both work with Abdullah and Homicide. That is pretty huge as far as I'm concerned, that stage of Abdullah's career to be working in Ring of Honor and having a show be about him. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
That was awesome, man. It It was great. We had a couple ideas of some stuff to do. One thing I always like to tell about that, you don't have to call those matches a lot. If you're professional, you only really need bullet points anyway.
Yeah.
It's a little harder these days when everything's so kind of choreography, not to get on my soapbox, but it's time, especially in that kind of match, because we're just fighting, But we started talking about a match, and of course, Abby's a veteran. So he's going to say, well, how about we'll do this, then you do that, then we'll do that. And he's very, very smooth while he's telling us what he thinks we ought to do. And I'm like, okay, all right, 3 of us around there. Then he goes, okay, so to go over it again, we'll do this, blah, 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 blah. And he said it completely different than he did the first time. And he says, okay, so one more time, it was this, blah, 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 then maybe you'll do that, blah, blah, blah. And he told it completely different than he did the first 3 times, So with the other 3 of us just said, all right, man, see you out there. It'll be great. So, but one thing Abby wanted to do, because it's hard for him to get in the ring, he wanted me to first move coming to get him when he's on the outside. He yanks me out from underneath the rope, and he's going to jam a fork in my head. That's opening spot. Okay, no tackle, drop down, leapfrog shit here. Opening spot is fork right in my forehead. He says, and go down and get color. Said, okay. So yanks me out, fork in the head. I go down, boom. Boop, 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 do what I got to do. Come up, and he says, I said get color. Okay. Geesh. Now I always pack 2, just for in case I don't have enough or whatever, if I got to do something somewhere else. Even these days, I'm weird about too much inside baseball stuff, like but everybody knows, and that's what it was. So I had a second one with me, and I went down. Now I'm like, and I could see a drop of blood come off my nose. I'm like, all right, and you can tell when there's wet on your forehead. It's warm, and I could see it drop off my nose. I go back up, feed back up, and his exact words were, "Don't you have a blade?" I'm going, I could see the blood. I could look down and see it on my nose, but not enough for him. And I say calmly as can be, I said, sir, how about you do this? How about you take the corner? I'm calmly like this in front of sold out building. Sir, how about this? Why don't you take the corner of your fork and just work it in my cut so I got a little bit more? That probably sounds gruesome, but that's the type of things we do. You can work that around there. He says, okay. Geez. And I still, in the right light, you can see I got a vertical scar there of him. No stitching or nothing, but just taking off. He's master with it. He just took off a couple layers of skin, but it was about 1.5 inch long mark. But it's no. He did it perfect. There was no stitches or anything, but I was bleeding for good then. Then he wanted to stick a fork under my tongue. The one that is already had at least my blood on it. Who knows how many other people's, but. It was a crazy time when we were young. All he does is he grabs me, grabs a fork, and all he says is, open your mouth and trust me. Like, okay. So he does that. But that was a lot of fun. I learned an important lesson in that match about working from him, and you wouldn't think so. I mean, he's a legend, but we happened to do this thing where Devito was off selling something. And I don't know where he was, but I ended up countering something on homicides, suplexing him, dumping him on his head. And then I come up and Abby's just sitting in the corner like this. I'm like, I can't just let him sit there. I go, what would I do if he's anybody else? So it's a hardcore match. I'd waffle him with the chair. So I grab the chair and I come over and I give him a good one. I'm not going to hurt him, but I give him a good one. That's the only way I know how to work, He swats it down and starts, this huge man, starts, and I'm not busting his balls, kind of like waddling, but trying to run at me with the fork. And I swear on my children, I thought he was so mad at me, and everybody else did too. It was the best. And they're all going, oh shit. You can hear him. He's going to come and kill me. I start backing up on a shoot. And then, it's all happened in the course of a second, but I realized I can't literally run away from this guy. So I'm just going to have to take whatever he's got. And I was sure that this is going to be bad. And I start backing up and I stop so he can catch me. Light as a feather. Didn't hurt me at all, but the people thought he was really mad, and so did I. And I tell that story a lot to my students. I'm like, see that little thing right there? That just for a second, he did a little something where everybody, including his opponent, thought he was really mad, and then he got right back to business and didn't hurt me. And you can manipulate the people that way, and you're always learning. At that point, I remember exactly. I was 8 years in the business, thought I knew everything. I thought, I mean, I wasn't ever. I say that I was never ever cocky about it, but shit, I'm 8 years. I've been doing this a long time. Stone Cold Steve Austin was 8 years in the business when he won WrestleMania. So I'm a veteran. I know what I'm doing. You know, now I'm 26 years in the business, and I look back and say, you didn't know anything. You know what I mean? But it's always like that. I can remember 1 year and thinking, I'm pretty good at this. And at 5 years in saying, no, you didn't know shit. Then in 10 years saying, no, you didn't know shit then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. But, you know, so I'm always learning. I learned from Abby that night. It was a great time.
Yeah, man, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing. And you know what? Al Snow said the same thing when we interviewed him. He was like, I thought I knew everything. And he's always learning, and he's still, you know, later on in life when he's not really working as much anymore in the ring, he just like thinks back to what he was like when he thought he knew everything. He's like, wow, that kid really didn't know anything still at that point. Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that. So you're feuding with Dan Maff and BJ Whitmer, eventually Jimmy Jacobs as well. And this is the moment I've been most looking forward to on the show, is talking about you and Tony becoming the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions after all this hard work. You're in this, I guess, this company now. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. You're in this company now, which is almost kind of like the continuation of that same kind of vibe ECW had. And now you've been given this great opportunity to represent the company as tag champions. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was great. We hugged and cried in the ring and knew we'd done something special. Knew we had kind of reached the pinnacle of tag team wrestling where we're at. Like I said earlier, that's the company I wanted to be in. You know, I wasn't, you know, I'd have taken other opportunities if they were there, thought about it, but I wasn't one of the guys saying, hey, I hope, because TNA was starting, I hope, you know, oh, cool, maybe I get with the TNA. I didn't care. You know, I mean, I was in Ring of Honor. I was a Ring of Honor guy, you know, and so that was everything, man. It felt such such a level of validation, you know, for the years and years and years of hard work into the business, but specifically us as a team, and then getting to do that. And it was we didn't have the world's longest reign, but you know, that's a major company, and it's as legitimate as anything can be in pro wrestling. That's a legitimate world title, and it meant everything to me. And it was something that the office had done kind of as appreciation to us. We were funny because that was a long time ago, but at the time we thought we were getting kind of old, and I still wanted to wrestle forever, but you know, personal life crept in, right? I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into that, but along those times, it was when my marriage was getting ready to end. Okay. And it was important for me to try to save that, and which didn't end up working, but more so it's like, now once you realize it's not, you have to move on. It was getting harder for me to justify leaving my kids to go wrestle. You know what I mean? It's one thing when there's a family vibe and there's, you know, two incomes, you know, stuff like that, you know. So it was going to be as much as we earned those and we deserved them. And I'd make an argument, maybe I wouldn't say we should have, but I would have bought the idea of us getting them sooner or getting them longer or anything like that. It was as much as I feel like we deserved that, it was also a thank you from the company we worked for, that for all that we done for them and for as hard as we'd worked. And it was kind of like it was almost like it's funny because it was a lifetime ago, and I've wrestled longer since then than before then, but it was kind of like our up until that point, if not our lifetime achievement award, it was our midlife achievement award. You know what I mean? It was for everything you've done. You know, if I was going to not be able to be as full time right then, because I had to be a dad, you know, and there was a time in my life where, as important as that was to me and is to me, and it's the most important thing that ever was, I still was a wrestler first. You know what I mean? And not before being a dad by any means, but where that was what my life was about. It was where I was going to wrestle, blah, 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 and all the kids are home. And then when it became just me, at least when I had them, you know what I mean? It was important for me to concentrate more on that. So that it was a culmination of everything. It was very, very emotional. There was real tears involved there.
Yeah.
It was probably certainly probably my crowning achievement. And actually in 2000, we just ended that terrible 2020. So I guess 2019, I won a version of what they call the UPW up here, Upstate Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight title, in an arena in Rochester, New York, where the whole floor was sold out. And that meant that was almost up there with me as far as because at that point I was 45 years old and very much in the most best shape of my life and wanting to do this. And at that point, it was my youngest son had gone to college, so it's all just me. So I can be on the road. You know, that year I did 73 shows, stuff like that. Obviously nobody did in 2020, but in 2019 I did. And so that was a big deal to me. But I still look at that Ring of Honor title win, as brief as it was, that was it. That was the big deal. That was the best. If it wasn't the best match, the match is a blur. It was the best moment of my career, of my life, the best achievement. And I got to do it with Tony Devito, who is, my wrestling best friend. And I always make him feel awkward. I always feel corny saying this to him. I make him feel corny, but I tell him, Tony, you're my wrestling soulmate. And he very much is. We're like, I talked to him yesterday, and we're like brothers, and we haven't had a chance to do this very much in the last several years. He's semi-retired, but everything, like the matches just go just right. He can do things that I can't, and I can think about things he doesn't think of, and it's just a perfect vibe.
That's cool, man. Speaking of Tony, do you have any funny or fun Tony Devito stories?
God, what can I tell? Got a million of them. I don't know how many of them. Some of them I can't tell. One of them, I'm sleeping on the floor in Ring of Honor in the hotel room, and he's sleeping in the bed, but he's drunker than the son of a bitch, right? And somehow he ended up completely naked while he's sleeping, right? And he gets up to stove and needs to go get a drink in the hallway, and he comes over and he walks completely on me, and he's a big fat fuck, right? Short fat fuck anyway. So both feet on me, like he doesn't even know he's there. He stumbles off of me, and oh Jesus Christ, like hurt. And they left the door open. I see his bare fat ass walk out there. And he's walking up and up and down the hallway looking for the soda machine, which he got. With his drink. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? He can't even talk, and he stepped on me again. Get back at that son of a bitch. I had to tell that to him the next day. You know, if you remember. I'm sure I can think if I had a little time, I could think of a million. But we had tons of time. I had trying to drive from here in New York to Wisconsin in the snow, and I would drive a half mile because I get so scared. And he knew he wanted to sleep. You know what I mean? So I'd drive a half mile. And he's like, fucking look, pull over. So he had to drive slow because I'm so shitty in the snow. But a million things, a million stories. But that's the first one thought in my head. Naked, sober, where he steps on me 3 or 4 times.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you about what the idea was behind adding MonetMaaate and Just Incredible to the Carnage Crew.
I guess I don't know what if there was I think we requested Just Incredible, I think. I'm sure because we liked him a lot, personally still do, obviously. And he was kind of he and Tony were close in WWE as underneath guys, real close. I don't know if I'm telling the story right, but I think Tony got PJ, Justin, his gig first with WWE.
Right.
And we just wanted him with us. We kind of, if you go back, it's funny that before I went to Ring of Honor, before I went to ECW, there was a period where Just Incredible was my favorite wrestler. He had this great match on Heatwave '98 with Jerry Lynn. Yeah. And somewhere, you know better than me, but it was not super long after that. I ended up starting to go hang around ECW, but I loved that so much. I called it my treadmill match. I watched it every day doing cardio, and for a long time after that came out, and I would dress like him on the Independents, and a lot of people dress that way, but he had like the cut off jeans and the cut off shirt, very ECW, and became
very independent wrestling for anybody who didn't want to buy wrestling gear. But that's a whole other story. You fast forward to ECW, he's world champion, and I'm trying to give him a chair because that's what you do. Back to your painter, give him my chair. PJ, can I carry your bags? And he wouldn't ever let me. He wouldn't take my chair. He would never let me. And he had every right to. You know what I mean? And he should have. Maybe. But and then after I started doing the extreme official thing, I would referee the championship matches, and he would always call a spot because I'm a big face and he's a heel. But the big thing you got to remember is he's the world champion and I'm a referee, and he would always call a spot for me to walk in. Just total generous guy. You know what I mean? Because he's like, and he would never, if there was a match where he needed a ref bump, he didn't want me to do it because he didn't want me to look weak because he wanted me to look like a wrestler.
Fair enough.
Like that. So, but if there was something, there could be some physicality where I could hit him, he would always let me do that. He would call it, I can't stress that enough. World champion calling spots for the referee. I'm not just talking like the referee shoving Ric Flair. He'd have me light him up with punches and send him off and give him something, And so then you fast forward to Ring of Honor and you have an opportunity to, we're wearing these shirts. We had I can't remember the name of it right now, but our team had a clothing sponsorship for these Jinx clothing awards, Jinx t-shirts. They had all these really cool, evil looking t-shirts, so we're wearing that. And I think we made the comment of like, this is something the DJ would wear, and that's kind of how it kind of got years old, They came in with us, and there was talk. I think they have a 6-man tag team title now, but there's talk of introducing one then. Just talk and pass it. That would be a cool thing we could do. Then MonetMaaate came in, and he was a Rudy Gonzalez guy. Rudy, he runs that Texas Wrestling Academy, and he would do anything. He'd be in matches with us, and he'd want to take all this shit, and then eventually I switched to we were feuding against him. I'm like, it's called Saito suplex, which I do a lot. And, it's kind of a high and tight, fairly uncomfortable bump as it is. He's like, yeah, will you do that to me on the outside on a chair through whatever? And he just was up. He just wanted to do all that stuff. And since then he's become, for that whole deathmatch clique, which I'm just on the fringes of, I stick my toe in once in a while. I don't know as much about it as other people do, but he became one of the kings of that, like as far as like legendary and that stuff. He was great at that.
Yeah, cool, bro. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts about those two guys. They're an important part of your history. Another two guys who I would say are an important part of your history are the Backseat Boys. Do you tell me any stories you have of working with those guys or hanging out with them?
I just love those guys. Trent was our brother, man. Trent Acid, if he'd been able to go a different way in his personal life. And that's not me dumping on him because there's a lot of similar baggage with me and a lot of people. But, we'd be talking about him right now the way we talk about AJ Styles or something. He was great. He was great and ahead of his time. We'd have great matches with those guys. Just always so much fun. Talk about up for anything, you know what I mean? And as far as, and it's one thing if somebody's up for anything as far as giving you a move. It's a different thing if they're up for anything as far as taking a move from you. You know what I mean? Like, I got an idea. Why don't you just do this? And I'll land like, are you sure you can take that without getting hurt? Yeah, man, I'll be fine. It'll look great. And Trent was like that. Johnny too, but Trent was special. I'm sure Johnny would tell you that as well. There was a time when we did some combined show. Ring of Honor and Jersey All Pro co-promoted a show somehow for some reason. We did something where we called it the Martys versus the Shawns backstage because it was like me and Trent versus, I think it was me and Johnny versus Tony and Trent, and that was our big rip. The Martys versus the Shawns. We're the Shawns, you're the Martys, all that. But we had so much fun with them. And of course the infamous, I don't know if you know or aware of the story, the infamous Teddy Hart night in Ring of Honor.
Oh, when he fucking kept on jumping off the fucking top of the cage. Oh my God.
Those were my, I can say this clearly. Those were my matches. Everybody was in charge of doing their own thing. And I'm not saying I'm the only people that did anything, but That's the scramble cage. I physically built the platforms for the, to put on the cage, and I come up with these stories of how we were going to do it. Well, the office would tell me, and now I would start planning on what we could do when, and that was 100% my finish. My idea was we'd give, I can't remember who was on, but Devito and I gave our finish to somebody. I always land on my feet with that, and I feed right into the T gimmick, which was a Backseat Boys finish. 1, 2, 3, they pin me. It's their moment. So that's supposed to be a big deal for them. They just beat 4 other teams or whatever it was. And then Teddy Hart starts doing his bullshit while they're celebrating in the ring.
Oh my God.
So I think Devito bumped him once, to have him get down and sell. And then we started walking to the back. If I remember that, it was 3 times. Then we started walking to the back, and he got up and did another flip. So not only is he not selling what Devito just gave him, he's still shitting on the guys that won the match.
Oh my God.
And I've heard other people tell this story, like Jim Cornette. Like I like a lot of his stories, but he tells a story this day and he tells it incorrectly. It's not how it went. It wasn't just he was not supposed to get up there and do that shit. And in fact, he in the heat in the back was from us, so I ran back out there. We both did. Devito and I. Devito was so pissed, and we'd been doing this country whipping matches at the time. So for one of those, belts was out there for something, and I whipped the shit out of Teddy in the stomach, and he bent over and goes, "Why?" And I says, "Quit being a fucking mark." And I swung it over the back of his back so he could go down and sell that. And then he's laying there for a while, and I think we gave him a guardrail, which is where he says he got a concussion, but he didn't. We go to the back, and you hear boom. Devito was in front of me, and I'm telling the people at Gorilla what just happened, what a piece of shit this guy is. Devito runs by me, going, "He's still flipping. He's still fucking flipping," and because he did it again. So we got out there, and I'm running behind Devito, not knowing what I'm going to do yet, if we're going to go out here and physically harm this kid in front of people, or if I'm going to defuse the situation, or blah, 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 blah. Luckily, DeVito's a big fat bastard, and he got blown up by the time he got there. So I just put my hand on his shoulder and he goes, "Oh, get him, Loc." So I go in there, and there's a bunch of people now. And however this went down, somehow there's a bunch of people there. And I'm like, "You motherfucker, get your ass to the back." And he did, and by then we'd taken his bag and thrown it out of the locker room. He wasn't allowed in our dressing room that night. He tried to come in. And I said, "You fucking I called him, "You little rock star, want to be whatever, you think you're more important than everything, blah, blah, blah. You're a piece of shit." And Devito says, "Your Uncle Owen would be rolling over in his grave if he knew you did that." I knew Owen. Yeah. My eyes like, "Holy shit, you're bringing up the guy's dead uncle," or whatever, you know what I mean? But it was just, we didn't let him in our locker room that night. And eventually he came back and everything gets smoothed over. And I've heard him tell that story in shoot interviews, and he tells it different every time. And not yet once has it been the truth of he was just being a glory hog and ruin somebody else's money. That's not being one of the boys. We talked about that earlier. Are you gonna take care of the boys? Or are you one of us? Or no? You're clearly in this for yourself. Because that was those guys' moment to shine, winning this big match. Which I presume was probably the last match of the Scramble Cage. They just won the main event. You're trying to take that from them. That's never gonna be me. Ever.
What the fuck was he thinking? It's just, how did he not realize he was going to get in massive trouble doing this?
I think that maybe my only answer to that would be is that he must somehow justify in his brain that he's so talented and so good, and what he's about to show these people is going to be greater than any heat he might receive for doing it, so he'll get a pass for it. And he didn't. I can remember him in the back going, "I was knocked out. I didn't know I was even flipping. I was knocked out." You fucking piece of shit. But whatever, and then I think, whatever. I thought in recent years, maybe he's grown up. I was supposed to work with him a year or two ago, and I looked forward to that. And I thought it'd be fun, and maybe laugh about that. And then shortly thereafter, he got arrested for whatever drugs, but also hitting his girlfriend and whatever bullshit like that. So fuck that guy. To me, I still get hot about that night when I think about it now, honestly. It's so unprofessional.
I can imagine, man. And the common denominator in the whole thing with him and everything that's gone wrong for him is him. That's the common denominator. So it seems like whenever I listen to an interview of his, it was because of this reason or that reason or this guy or that guy. bro, you can't mess up that many great opportunities that you've had.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah, for sure.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So I wanted to ask you about 2005. Your run at Ring of Honor comes to an end. Why is that?
Family stuff. It was
Okay.
kind of like self. It was you know, trying to save a marriage, trying to be a better dad. You know, I mean, I can't. And you know, sometimes wrestlers and even wrestling fans, not that they want their coworkers or their people that they're fans of to be pieces of shit, but they want to hear that wrestling's everything and blah 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 blah. And wrestling is everything, except for my kids. You know, except now, you know, except for, you know, my elderly father and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I put them on the back burner too long. I'd lost a family, not a family, but a family unit. You know, their mother and I, you know, we take, whenever she's in town, we take our kids out to all dinner. We have Christmas together. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm certainly the luckiest divorced man there's ever been, ever. But it was terrible for a few years.
Yeah,
and it was as much my fault as hers, if not more. It was my fault first, put it that way. And well, I just kicked my tripod. And that was, a lot of that was, well, I'm on the road and this is my life. And after the show, there's always a strip club and there's always a female fan who really appreciates your work. And there's always those, hey, those Ric Flair moments. I got paid $300 tonight, but I had a bar tab of $400 because I bought for the crowd. As much fun as that shit is, and I still like doing that part of it. You got a family at home, you know, and if your only justification for being away from them is that you're out making money, well, you blew that right there. Yeah. And you're not, and you know, just the whole lifestyle of being gone and kind of being a little bit too full of my own shit. Certainly not from a wrestling aspect as far as how it would affect my work or how I was seen by my peers and my coworkers and stuff like that. But as far as my home life, I was a wrestler 24/7. And I believe you have to be. You have to be a wrestler every day. That has to be part of your life. You have to say, if you're someone that's prone to have a bit of a belly, you have to say, I'd like to go out to have pizza, but I want to be a wrestler. You know, and it's got to be, I can't skip the gym no matter how cold it is because I got to be a wrestler. And I'm, you know, I got to wrestle this weekend. I need to tan. I can't slack, whatever. You have to be a wrestler every day, but that can't supersede being a dad every day, you know, and I needed to do that. And then I spent, after Ring of Honor, you know, not that I want to speed through the rest of whatever questions you might have, but that turned into very much of wrestle 20 times a year. Okay, well, maybe we'll wrestle 10 times a year. Some years wrestle 5 times, you know, seriously, sometimes I've had a couple of years, I can remember where I wrestled 5 or 6 times in those years, and on purpose didn't go to my stomping grounds, like in Rochester, where I know everybody. Just do these little indie shows. There's shindies, as we call them. You know what I mean? Where shitty indies, where you know there's going to be 40 people in the crowd, but I just got to be around it because I love it so much, and you got to go see it. Yeah. It was because I didn't want to be. I didn't want that to take over. I didn't want to. I couldn't stand that. I couldn't stand knowing that this was my weekend to have my kids, but I had to purposely say no because I've got to wrestle. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and once in a while I would have to do that because I needed to keep my toe in that wrestling water for, I don't know, a couple, 3 years, for whatever many years it was in there when I wasn't trying to be an active independent wrestler so much. I've never stepped away, but I backed off so much that I pretty much had. And that was where I was until basically maybe 3 years ago. It's 2021. It's 3 years ago or 4 years ago. My youngest kid graduated high school, and now it's like, and there's still time for. I mean, especially in this day and age when Dustin Rhodes is 50, you know, Christopher Daniels is 50-ish. You know what I mean? AJ Styles is a couple years younger than me. but he's AJ Styles, but whatever. But and I still have friends and still whatever, and I've been able to train guys the whole time and always help mentor and do those things. Now can I still get it back out there and do it myself on as close to a full-time basis as possible, and I've been able to do that. Of course, last year screwed it for everybody, but when you get in these, maybe I can. Who knows? There's that NWA for a while and AEW, and there's so many places.
Yeah.
You could go, and where there's guys that are my peers and in my age group that you can do. It becomes exciting all over again, as opposed to Monday Night War days when they were talking about Hulk Hogan being a dinosaur. Yeah. And I mean, and he was younger then. He was younger then than AJ Styles is now.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
can you believe that? But so that's one good change we've had for sure in the business.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, it must be so difficult, when you're away from home so much, and when we're not spending time with your partner quite often, there's that disconnect. And when you're getting back from being off the road and there's this, adrenaline rush every night and, having fun all the time. And then you got to come home and you got to be dad, you got to be husband. I can totally see how that disconnect can happen because, she's at home doing what she's got to do for the family and you're off working your ass off, but also you two aren't connecting because you're not together more than enough. So that must be really tough.
Yeah, it was. And I'm so blessed now. I have my girlfriend now who lives 15 feet outside this window we're here right now. Little tip, if you ever have the means or the opportunity, the house next door to me came up for sale at a very cheap rate, and I happen to be a contractor. So I bought it, fixed it up, was going to sell it or rent it out, but I moved my girlfriend in there. That's the happiest anybody could ever possibly be. She's right there. I can see her through her window, but I'm home and she's home, and we have that together as much as we need to be. So you have that, never get on anybody's nerves. But the reason why I'm so blessed is because, she believes in me. So, and not that my ex-wife didn't, God bless her. I didn't keep up my end of the bargain. Yeah. But my girlfriend these days, she believes in me so much. She makes sure I have merch. When she can, she'll come and she'll be the one that sells my merch. And
that's cool.
And be on my ass to be like, did you do your workout today? Stuff like that. And what do you want to have for supper tonight, honey? I was kind of thinking about having pizza. We had pizza on Sunday, and you got to wait 7 days to your next cheat meal. Like, you're right. I have to do that, and she, so I'm very blessed right now. She's good to me. Very good. Yeah. But that was, and my ex-wife was too for a while. For a while she wasn't, but I had it coming by that point. But there was that whole, I'm on a light road and I'm living this life that you want to live. And it's kind of like a rock star life. Well, it can be, and guys my age break the new guys' wall, not new. Some of these are 15, 16, 18-year veterans. But guys my age will bust today's generation falls a little bit because they don't go to the strip club afterwards. What do? They go play video games in the hotel, right? And as much as that's so different, and I might think, oh, man, we had so much fun. None of those guys are going to go home to an empty house this weekend. None of them, None of them are going to have marital troubles based solely on that, And they might for other reasons, just for being gone, but they're out there leading a healthier, more responsible lifestyle that is more conducive to them being a good husband and father when they get home. So ball busting aside, because, I'm of the opinion that video games are pretty lame. Being a good dad and a good husband is anything but lame. So I kudos to this generation of guys and women for the lifestyles they have on the road these days compared to what we did. And my first weekend on the road ever, where somebody paid for a hotel room and I got to stay 2 nights and wrestle 2 nights or something like that, or stay 1 night and wrestle 2 or something. There was a bar in the hotel, and I was shy and I was good. And so one of the guys came by and said, "You got to come down to the hotel." Go, "Oh man, I'm good. You got to come down and drink with the boys, man. You're gonna get heat. You got to come down and drink with the boys." And I'm not. And that's really how it was. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not saying that's even. You got to be sociable. You know what I mean? For still, but if you can socialize by, coming home with all your money and not being a strip club and being a better husband and being a better dad, not having to, then God bless you, man. I wish that's how we did things in my day in comparison. But
I understand, bro. 100% I understand. So this was an interesting thing that I saw in my research. It's July 10, 2010. It's Acid Fest. We've talked about Trent Acid before, but the Carnage Crew reformed after many years of not being together. How was that night and the tribute to Trent?
it was awesome. I mean, it was super emotional because we all love Trent so much. But Devito and I teamed, and Nick Gage and somebody else was his partner. And I know that the Hit Squad was in there, and maybe another team too.
Yeah.
I don't know in our men. But it was a lot of fun, and I remember getting done, and somebody got the 3 count. And we're doing our war like we always did, especially with the Hit Squad. You know, I always love working with Dan Moff. Like next weekend, I got to work with MonetMaaate, his old partner.
Yeah.
We got done with the match. Somebody got the 3 count. And I slide in from one side all hot because we lost. And Danny Moff slides on the other side all hot because he lost. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but we looked up at each other, caught each other's eye. I smile a little bit. He smiles back. We just hug and point to the sky for Trent, you know, and that's like something you write, but we didn't. You know what I mean? It was just, cool. It was a real, we're our friends, our brothers, and we're here because we lost one of us. And that was a great day. It was a lot of fun, real good time.
That's cool, man. And for those playing at home, that 4-way featured the SAT of Joel and Jose Maximo, the Carnage Crew, the Hate Club of Nate Hatred and Nick Gage, and the Hit Squad with Mafia and Monster Mac. So
cool.
I'm going to seek that show out. Surely I can find that for a download online somewhere.
Seems like it ought to be out there somewhere.
Yeah, it has to be. That's 2010. You've already alluded to how it was about 4 years ago you finally started coming back and working more often now that your kids are of an age where, you know, you can now go and do that stuff. Tell me a little bit about, you know, what else you hope to achieve in the wrestling business as an in-ring worker before we start talking a bit more about your training school.
As an in-ring guy, I guess I want to stay busy for as long as I can. I'd like to wrestle as long as I can, and I have no end date in mind. Like I could say I'm not going to do this. I have no desire to, but I could see I'm certainly at an age where you could retire now, but I could also still see me doing it when I'm 70 or as long as I can. I don't know why I wouldn't, honestly, you know, as long as I physically can. Injuries will be a thing as I get older, even though I've spent the last couple of years of my life. COVID hit us all last year so hard that my gym regimen, just like everybody else's, kind of waned. So there's a little bit of an adjustment getting back to where I was there. But spending most of the last few years is big and strong and in the best shape I've been in my career. Even at that, I suffered a couple big injuries, tore my hamstring, and that was purely because I was poor training habits. I love the sport of bodybuilding. I could never compete in it. I'm not good enough at it. I don't have those kind of genetics, but I foolishly made my quadriceps much stronger than my hamstrings. And my theory just being, I don't care. I wrestle in long tights, long shorts. You know what I mean? It's all about, how I look for wrestling, not for a bodybuilding stage. So I hadn't even thought about that. So at some point, that muscle, the front one was so much stronger than the back one that I just tore, you know. So that was quite an adjustment. And then I broke my neck.
Oh, fuck, man.
Broke my neck in training, taking a DDT from a student of mine. And he kind of just gave it to me kind of on the wrong side a little bit. And I was super zealous to make him, to put him over. You know what I mean? I got I always have, everybody does, a couple of guys in my class that there's my guys that are there and they're good soldiers. There's my guys that look at like they're going to be stars someday. And once in a while you get a guy or two around who's like your buddy, you know what I mean? And they're not very big and they're not very good, but they try as hard as they can. And they love it so much, and they pay their money and all those things. And I want to, so I a lot of times will on a show wear a mask and wrestle my guys like that. So they can at least be out there and do that. So I did a little thing where I wrestled. It was in practice because we were getting ready to do it on a show, and I needed to, where I wrestled a guy, actually has autism. I have an autistic student who's you know, coming along. He's never going to be in the WWE or anything like that, but he loves it so much. And his parent, I've had the talk with his parents, and they're all about him having this outlet, and they're aware of the dangers and all those things. So I wrestle him on some shows where I wear a mask, and so he can win and stuff like that. And we were getting ready for that at a show, at a practice, and he'd given me a big spear, and I take a huge bump for him. And my other students, the people in the building, they cheer for him, and he has this great moment. And he pins me, and then I grab the referee, who's the guy I alluded to earlier, who I was trying to give my my Extreme official thing to. And we did a little spot where turn around, and he's going to DDT me. Now he kind of hooks me from the opposite side than is customary, although it works both ways. And just me, I'm so amped up, and he kind of wrenched me just a little bit more than you should. And I, you know, and still the veteran can make a mistake. I'm so pumped up because the few people in this building are cheering this kid, this autistic kid. And I want to do it for this guy too. So I tried to do the Rob Van Dam bump.
Oh gosh, okay.
And I mean, I was fine in a few weeks, but it was legit, like it was a broken neck. I got the x-rays and all those things, and it scared the shit out of you. So if I can avoid stuff like that, I'd like to just keep busy, keep working. I like to be the guy in the locker room that you can always count on for a good match, that everybody else can say, you know, unless there's somebody else, another veteran in the locker room. So I don't want to say everybody else, but you know what I mean? Most everybody else in the locker room can rely on to have a good match with, or say, will you watch my match? Can you help? I love that. You know, can you watch my match? Tell me what I should do better, or what I did right, or what I did wrong. But as far as like big lofty goals that I don't think are too far out there, I would like to get a shot at, just even for a match or two, be seen nationally again somewhere. Right before the pandemic hit, I was so busy. Last April is when WrestleMania was going to be, and I had 14 matches scheduled for that month, and they were all really cool and in different areas, and some in Tampa, where I was going to team with Devito in Tampa again.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
a bunch of shit like that. So we'll hopefully get back to that. But there was talk then of, it was just tipped my tongue, I don't remember what it was, but of at any rate, there's so many of these opportunities, like Billy Corgan's NWA, which is kind of in a state of flux right now, but at the time it was doing some good stuff. And AEW was coming up. And of course, there's MLW, and I know what I was going to say. Around that time, this time last year, Ring of Honor was getting ready to do a show they called Past and Present, where they were going to have a bunch of guys, Ring of Honor originals, come in and wrestle the new crop of guys.
Wow.
And I was trying to I was getting my nose stuck into that a little bit, you know, and that, you know, all went away. So if I could get a match, and of course, if they want me on top for 10 years, man, you know, that'd be great. But if I get a match or two, at least in a Ring of Honor on AEW, which I think is not at all out of the realm of possibility. There's some avenues there for me, and you know, something like that. And certainly, if and when the NWA gets rolling again, like it was every week, if I can get in there a little bit and be seen, just for me,
yeah,
I'd be happy with that. And then I just wrestle my indies if that's all they wanted out of me. But the big thing is then to parlay that into agenting or something, or producing for one of those companies. There's a place I work for now called Catalyst Wrestling. That used to be called Capital Wrestling. They had to change their name, but that's got some real cool streaming. Their show streams on a bunch of different platforms, as well as has TV in a lot of different markets. And I wrestle there, and I agent there. And just recently, I started doing some guest commentary there. So that's something else. You know what I mean? So as far as my in front of the camera goes, as far as big goals, I'd like to be seen nationally in one of the companies at least one more time. And I'd like that to work into a job, you know, where I can be helpful backstage, or if that can, or if I talk on camera, that's fine. That'd be great too. But kind of with the intent then, depending on how, if that goal comes true. And I've always been pretty good or pretty lucky, whichever you want to call it, at one way or another, setting these goals and getting them to happen, you know. If I can do that, and then I'd still like to remain as busy as I can on the independents as long as I can. Like Lawler or El Snow or these guys, you know, they just, I think more Lawler than El Snow these days. They just keep going, you know, they just love it and they want to do it. I want to spend Saturday in a car with some like-minded individuals, with some buddies of mine, you know, going to a show and having a match and having so much fun, seeing the fans, and then bitching about our shitty payoffs or how much that ring sucked or how goddamn it, they didn't advertise for that show. But aren't we so goddamn lucky? I tell that to people all the time. On your worst day as a wrestler, my match sucked. The guy I worked sucked. That promoter didn't have the money he said he was going to have. The ring broke. You're going to hear those stories about every wrestler that's ever wrestled 100 times each.
Yeah.
But just once in a while, just take a breath and say, fuck, man, I was just wrestling. I'm a professional wrestler. I was just on a wrestling show. Everybody else came to watch a wrestling show. I got to be a wrestler. I could be home digging ditches. I could be home painting the wall, you know, but I was wrestling. So you do that in front of literally 12 people, which happens during a pandemic sometimes because they have crowd limitations here.
Yeah.
If you're allowed to run at all, some places, like I've been places where like, yeah, we're only allowed to put 15 tickets on sale. It's better than not wrestling, right? To me,
Yeah.
I guess it's an addiction to that degree, you know. And you get to say, God, I'm pretty blessed that I've got to do it, you know. And so wrestling career-wise, the quick answer is, and I'm not good at quick answers, as you know now. We're probably an hour 9 interview. All my answers are long-winded. It's just to keep going. I would like that one big break again, but even if it doesn't happen, just keep going, you know, and lend whatever experience I have, the stories I've got to tell, to be helpful and entertaining and encouraging to the next generation, so that then when they get on those platforms, even if they don't even say it publicly, if in behind closed doors they say, you know, Loc helped me get here, that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I don't have, and if some new some other day, that's great. You know, means a lot to me.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, bro. And at this time, I want you to have the opportunity to plug anything that you want to plug, where to find you on social media. Talk to us about your training school. Everyone out there wants to know what's going on with HC Loc. Tell them right now.
Cool, man. Yeah, well, the wrestling school itself is I've got a building being constructed on my property right now. I'm actually a contractor, as I mentioned, but I ordered like a prefab thing to be assembled here to be a gym, to house all my gym equipment and my ring, and we're gonna set it up with lights and cameras and all that stuff so that we can film promos, film matches, and stuff like that. Again, the COVID kind of hit my school hard because we were working out of a place that was a public building, and then we got shut out of there. So all last summer, my ring was in my lawn, you know, and guys would come to, which was fine. That doesn't work in the winter, but it's okay because there's another place. There's a couple other places within an hour and a half driving. You drive an hour and a half either direction on the highway from my house. There's a wrestling ring, and with guys I know in each of them. So I'll go there, and I'll send my students there. You know, we have a good relationship with all of them. I don't believe there's so much in American independent wrestling. There's so much bullshit of these guys think they're Bischoff versus McMahon, and they think that, oh, if you work for that guy, you can't work here. I don't play any of that shit. None of that. If you're a professional and gentleman and one of the boys and a friend to me, I'll work for you. I'll work with you, and my students will as well. And there's a couple of wrestling schools, like I said, not too far away from here. I don't think they necessarily get along with each other, but they all get along with me, and my guys are welcome at both. So we do that. I'll send my guys there just so they can get in the ring. I'll go up there and teach a class to what I quote unquote my guys and their guys as well. And that's kind of how we've been floating while the snow's on the ground. by the 1st of April, my building's supposed to be done here. And this is the first time I've said this publicly, but we've decided, my girlfriend and I actually, and we've decided to give it a name rather than just, hey, it's Loc School. It's going to be, we've got the logos and the banners made. It's going to be the Fighting Arts Pro Wrestling Institute. I've always loved that. Fighting Arts is a way. And then what we're going to do, eventually we'll do the little tapings out of there. I don't anticipate, I don't rule it out. I don't anticipate when the world gets back to normal, me promoting shows so much. But that might happen in the future. But we'll do little tapings so we can YouTube up basically our own television show. And that's good for me to get my chops up at writing and stuff like that. It's good for my guys to learn promo skills and learn to work a camera and things like that. So that will be called Fighting Arts Pro Wrestling. That'll be coming in 2021 as all these things progress. But as far as getting a hold of me about training, about booking, about asking a question about wrestling, I got asking a question about shit in my pants in New Orleans, in ECW. If you search obviously HC Loc on Facebook, but you'll find me under my shoot name, Matt Knowles, and it'll come up the guy that looks like me. So that's me. Or Instagram or Twitter, if you search HC Loc 1. Please, I'm new to this Twitter game. You talk about, I never feel a generation yet that much in wrestling, except for that. There's guys, I don't know who they are. They've got thousands and thousands of followers. They do great because that. I saw an interview with Cody Rhodes. Somebody asked him, what do you look for in a guy to bring to AEW? And he says, among other things, their activity on Twitter. That's exactly what he said. I'm like, I've got 2 followers on Twitter. Not really, but not, I don't know that world at all. I'm just learning that. So you go to my page and you see a few hundred or whatever followers because I'm new to it. I don't know how to get that word out. So if anybody sees them and just even wants to give me a mercy follow, just so, I get those numbers up and do my thing. If I post something wrestling related, especially on Facebook, you check the next day and there's 200 likes and however many shares. And I'm like, cool. I copy and paste it and post the same thing on Twitter and there's 3.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in that type of thing. I'm learning over there. So at HC Loc 1 on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm sure if you search HC Loc, you'll find it on Facebook. But it's Matt Knowles is my name on KNOWS.
Awesome, bro. And everyone, right down there, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to have all those links there for anyone to click on if you want to follow HC Loc on Twitter and find him on Facebook. You're going to be right there in the description. So please do, guys, and keep up to date with what's going on with him. And sir, I do hope that you get the opportunity to work somewhere like the NWA. I hope maybe I don't know if what's going on with Tommy, if House of Hardcore is still a thing, but that will be pretty cool too.
That would be great too, something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, I really hope those things work out for you, my friend.
Thanks, man.
So before I sail off into the sunset with you here tonight, HC Loc, we have our final segment of the show. It's 5-second frenzy. 5 seconds to answer each question. I know with wrestlers it takes longer than 5 seconds, so even if you take too long, it's okay. You won't get in trouble. So
if I don't have it, I'll make something up.
Excellent, bro. 5-second frenzy. HC Loc, number 1 question: your favorite wrestler of all time?
Favorite wrestler of all time changes all the time, but I got 5 seconds, so I'm going to say Shawn Michaels.
Excellent answer. Your favorite opponent you've ever had?
Favorite opponent I've ever had? Oh my goodness. Oh, I have no clue on that one. My favorite opponent, I will say, young guy. You should all look at a guy named Carter Mason out of Canada. He's pretty awesome. I had a lot of wars with him in last year, maybe year before, I guess it was now. Talented. You're going to see a lot of him for sure. Awesome. Carter Mason is the name. Yeah.
Excellent, bro. Your favorite match that you've ever had?
Probably favorite match I ever had might have been myself and Jerry Lynn, and this is awful. I don't remember exactly. Somebody else versus Just Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And
Carino.
Steve Carino and maybe Rhino was in there somehow too. And we did a TV, and that was a main event of a TV, and we went all over the. This is more than 5 seconds, but
that's
that
okay.
Got to do some cool stuff. Yeah.
I believe that one was. Let me just find it. I have to find it now. It was the main event of Hardcore TV, 6-man tag, your second last TV match in ECW. Danny Daniels, Just Incredible, and Rhino defeated HC Loc, Jerry Lynn, and Steve Carino in 10 minutes.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, Steve get on the same team there. I don't remember that. So, he switched babyface at some point. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, the nerd in me just needed to make sure that.
No, I'm glad you
did. Your favorite book?
Favorite book, that changes all the time too. I would say you'd think it would be a wrestling book. I have so many of them that I love. I just read this one, Teeny, about Christine Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett's mom, who actually was the matriarch of all that wrestling stuff down there. That was awesome. I of course love Tracy Smothers' book because I love Tracy so much, and my good friend Kenny Casanova writes a bunch of books lately of Sabu and Brutus Beefcake and a bunch of people like that. But I will say my favorite book is called The Dirt about
Motley Crue, bro. I was just gonna say it's my favorite book.
Really, it was awesome.
I've read it 3 times. You should see how weathered that book is now. But, it's called the Bible for a reason in rock and roll. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show is The West Wing.
Ah, very good. Yep.
Yeah.
Your favorite film?
I always say Goodfellas because I've seen it so many times, but that holds true. I love that movie still. Yeah.
Great film, man. And here's a good one because I know you're big into your music. Your favorite musical artist?
Again, this is kind of resting on my history, but I would say Pantera is the most influential of my life, type of thing. When they hit when I was in high school, I was like, what happened? Because everything was either glam metal or the speed thrash stuff, and I liked both, but this was this power metal, as they call themselves, so this groovy stuff. And that, I mean, I got to meet Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown actually when I was doing autograph signing sessions, believe it or not. There was a place where they'd have movie guys and musicians and wrestlers.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I had the vinyl of 2 of their records, and I had them sign it. And I've got a few autographs, but just I probably should have done that more. But like I've got like Dory Funk's autograph here on his wrestling figure, and that's because I wrestled him. Then he gave me that and signed it for me. So I like mementos like that more than just an autograph. I had to get those guys, and I made a point to tell them, they didn't know who the fuck I was, but I said, listen, guys, I just got to let you know, I've been writing and recording music for 25 years, and if it wasn't for these records, I probably wouldn't have. So I got a chance to thank them. So it would be Pantera, I'm sure.
Yeah, man, they totally changed the game as far as heavy metal was concerned. That's for sure. Fucking love them, man. Fucking love them. Your favorite food?
Oh, right now I'm dieting, so it's a long list. But I'm a pizza and cheeseburger guy, but I love sushi too. And sushi's very healthy as long as I don't go nuts on the rice. But I'm pretty simple as far as that stuff. If I get a good if I've been dieting all week trying to do wrestling, bodybuilding shit, and I'm either gonna get a whole pizza for myself or 2 or 3 of Wendy's double cheeseburgers or something like that. I love that stuff. I'm not a sweets guy. It tastes good. I like cake, cookies, and that tastes good, but I never would ever crave that, or I would never break my diet for that. I don't care that much. But if there's a slice of pizza sitting there or a good looking burger, it's going to be that's too tempting for me.
Absolutely, man. My mouth just watered a little bit there. So
yeah,
big on pizza too, bro. Your favorite place to eat on the road?
Waffle House. What else is there? I love it. I haven't been in a city with them in a while, but that's just old school wrestler stuff though. But always Waffle House. I love Bob Evans breakfast too. They're yeah, for sure. But Waffle House, that's a go-to wrestler answer, I'm sure.
We get it a lot. We get that a lot. We get pizza a lot as well. Here's a good one. Your favorite alcoholic beverage?
Right now, although I try not to partake that much, but I like vodka and I like the Smirnoff, just the plain stuff like that. And that all came about because of wrestling, because of, whatever little, I don't consider myself a bodybuilder, but because of the bodybuilding I have to do and just loving that and wanting to look at for wrestling, it doesn't have any carbs. So, and then when I fall off the wagon, as I call it, about food, not booze, I'm like, pandemic hit and not training for shit. We're eating like shit. So then I drink my 0 carb vodka with chicken Alfredo or something. So it kind of defeats the purpose. But I love vodka, or except for if you're out having a meal and maybe you're having a burger in a bar or pub or something like that, or restaurant, and they get that frosted draft beer, not out of the bottle, not even the draft with the whole thing, and you're eating that with a piece of beef. Holy cow. Yeah, that might have to be tonight's supper. That sounds good.
That sounds fantastic to me, bro.
Yeah.
I might be doing that tomorrow when it's a normal part of the day. Here's one of my favorite ones in 5 second frenzy. Your favorite female body part?
Favorite female body part? That has changed over the years a lot. Due to my lovely girlfriend, it has switched to the butt. I will tell you what, this girl, that's the running joke. That'd be like all these ads on Facebook for coffee cups that compliment your girlfriend's butt. She's got like 8 or 10 of them over there. So every time I see one, I have to buy them for her. But yeah, I like. But but beyond that, to be honest, and not to get all corny, but a girl's eyes, of course. I mean, like,
yeah,
there's some of them that just melt you before you even, before they even say a word. If she's got pretty eyes or something like that. Unless she's got tattoos and they're cool tattoos, then she can have ugly eyes, no butt, and not even be nice to me, and I'll probably buy her a car or something like that. Yeah.
All right, HC Loc, the last one here for 5 second frenzy. Your favorite curse word?
Fuck, I don't know any curse words. Yeah, I guess fuck. It comes out when it doesn't even supposed to. You're like, it's not. I wouldn't even like in the middle of words. I'm on this pod fucking cast now. It just comes out. I don't even know why. But yeah, and that's a wrestling thing. I get in the I'll be talking to a wrestler on the phone or about wrestling or talking to you. And my kids or my girlfriend's kids who are even younger will be around or something like that. I'm like, Jesus, I said 10 words and 9.5 of them were fucked. But
that's brilliant, man. No, we get that answer a lot too on the show.
Yeah,
and it's my favorite curse word too. So HC Loc, I really want to thank you for your time being on the show here. I don't know if you realize, but we've just gone over 2.5 hours now. So
I was not aware of that. What time is it? I have an interview at 1:00, which is 8 minutes ago. Sweet.
So, man, I'll let you go, but I want to thank you for your time on the show. Really appreciate it. And I hope you're proud of everything that you accomplished in the wrestling business, because from Perth, Western Australia, the most isolated city in the world, someone here appreciated you and what you did, man. So
that means more than I could ever say, honestly. I mean, and that's a nice thing to say, and I'm sure you say it to a lot of your guests, but please know that means the world to me, to know that somebody in Australia even remembers or gives a shit or anything like that. So and so thanks so very, very much for having me. And of course, when we get farther along, if there's anything I can ever do for you, if you want me to send some other guys your way or post links for you, I do anything I can for you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it too, man. And I want to thank you guys all out there for watching here on the WZWA Network podcast in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I am your host with the most on the West Coast, California in Fury, and we will see you next time. Thank you.